the pressure has risen a little at 9:15. And it's going to take a lot more than that to change the speed of this thing. And there's the forecast track taking it across the northern end of Grand Bahama, and then that turn between about noon and 6 p.m. on Monday. That's a critical time, and then tracking up the East Coast after that. But very close to the coastline. One of the reasons, one of several, that we have the hurricane watches and warnings in effect right now. And if you take a look at the radar, you can still see lots of lightning surrounding the eye of this. The eye is about 10 miles wide, and the outer feeder bands are already starting to work in through South Florida too, a big band there. So if you've been through storms in the past, you know that the feeder bands work in. They move very quickly, 30, 40, 50 miles an hour. They have the threat for tornadoes. They also have heavy downpours. We do not need any more rain, and we're not expecting a lot of rain from this storm, but locally in these big downpours, we can pick up a quick couple inches of rain and 40, 50 mile an hour wind gusts in some of the cells too. So there's one moving through Jupiter Farms and down toward Wellington. There's a second one just off the coast that'll pull in. The core winds, just winds above 100 miles an hour, are expected to stay offshore at this point. It is moving away from Marsh Harbor and Hopetown and in toward Grand Bahama, and that track takes it, as I said, in toward West End later tomorrow with a turn. So there's Tuesday 2 a.m. So this is like a 12-hour position here as it continues to make that turn up and paralleling the East Coast. And all of the Treasure Coast and most of Palm Beach County in that cone. Here's a better view, because I know that map is just too small to read. There is, so we'll break it down here. There's 2 p.m. tomorrow, and then there is Tuesday 2 a.m. That is not very far. This essentially stalls on the western tip of Grand Bahama and sits there for 12 hours for all intents and purposes, and then starts to lift after that. And some of the new computer models coming in that didn't show it earlier are starting to show it now. So a hurricane watch in effect for Palm Beach County and a hurricane warning for the Treasure Coast and offshore. And we have a tropical storm warning, which is over 39 miles an hour for Palm Beach County, and a tropical storm watch. So the tropical storm force winds are possible, sustained winds for the interior or viewing area. And the storm surge, a lot of people are asking about that. It'll continue to pick up. The peak flooding threat times will be around midnight and around noon. That's when our high tide times are. We have the king tides this weekend and early next week, Monday, Tuesday. So about 2 to 4 feet above, and a surge of 4 to 7 possible on the Treasure Coast as the storm moves closer. And that 4 to 7 is more on Tuesday as the storm makes its closest approach to the Treasure Coast at that point. The computer model tracks, and they're starting to update, are showing, again, that turn taking place, but still some showing a landfall just to the north around the Cape, and then moving north after that. So at least we don't have any tracks that are pushing into South Florida. That doesn't mean it won't happen. It just means that the computer model guidance is still suggesting that there's a weakness here, and the storm has the ability to find that and move out. And there's also a trough back to the west. Computer model guidance is still suggesting that there's a lot of hurricanes, and the storm has even more than this find out and won't happen. Friday, became a Category 5 hurricane. So we're watching it closely, and of course, we're looking at some changes to closely.
You just were reading my mind of the rules it hasn't followed, starting with, have you ever seen one of this size and scope? It was essentially nearly drifting after a while. Talk about that as you take us back over the last week, how this is really turns spaghetti models into pretzels at some points.
Yeah, I think a lot of people use the computer model guidance as some sort of exact forecast out the next 5 to 6 days. That's not the case. And people often ask, well, is there better models than others? There are some models that perform better than others, like the European and the GFS. I'll show you the computer models here. But with this storm, the computer models do a very good job on Category 1 and 2 hurricanes. They don't do a great job on tropical storm tracks or strong, intense hurricanes. They like kind of the middle of the road type of storm. And this one could create some issues if it stalls or slows down even more, because it becomes more uncertainty in the future forecast track when that happens. We like to see at least some forward motion, and this storm has the threat of stalling or near stalling over West End for about 12 hours tomorrow.
All right, Steve, thanks so much. We'll get back with you in just a few moments. We were just on Palm Beach a few moments ago. Julian Idle was showing us that the police are going to escort people off the island. It is a mandatory evacuation area. Let's go down farther south to Boynton Beach, and Miranda Christian is going to join us live right now. Tell us what it's like right now in Boynton. Miranda?
Yes, so we're in Briny Breezes, which is just east of Boynton Beach, just across the intercoastal. They're a little community just on the other side of the intercoastal. And today we were also with police as they were going around and making sure everybody knew about this evacuation order. They were going around in their car, going door to door, making sure everybody knew that they were in the evacuation zone. So right now this is Briny Breezes. You can see a lot of these homes here have their shutters up, they're boarded up, and these are mobile homes. So these are the type of homes that the construction would not stand up against a hurricane. So these are the type of people who need to evacuate right now. So as I was saying, we went around with Boynton Beach Police, and they were making sure everybody knew that they needed to leave as soon as possible. And as Steve was just saying, king tide. This is one of the areas that was seeing it earlier today. The water was actually over the sidewalk here, and the sidewalk was wet earlier when we were here. So already high water, and this is an area that we are told that floods during the storms. So there's already concern about added storm surge causing more flooding in this area. So of course, police really want to make sure people are paying attention to this evacuation order and they're getting out as soon as possible. We had several people ask us today how they can leave tomorrow before the bridges close, and I did reach out to the city and the fire department, and they said once those wind speeds start picking up around 50 miles an hour, then they can no longer respond to things. So that's when people really need to keep in mind that if the storm comes through and those winds start picking up, that first responders can't get to you on the barrier island. So they were asking people, if you're still here tonight and planning on evacuating, to get out as soon as you can tomorrow morning. But it was great to see most people had their place shuttered up and they were planning on leaving late tonight or early tomorrow morning. But police said it was great to see that so many people were taking this storm seriously. A lot of people let their guard down yesterday when Boynton Beach was coming out of the cone there for a little bit, and then we were back in. So a lot of people were still taking it seriously. Of course, police were going around and making sure everybody in this evacuation zone knew that they needed to leave. Reporting live in Boynton Beach, I'm Miranda Christian for BPTV Channel 5.
It is now 8:44, and we'll have more coverage right after this. We want to pass along some information just being released by Florida Power and Light. In fact, just tweeting just a short time ago, and I should be able to read it. Sorry, you guys are going to have to drop that lower third. I can see our meteorologists continue to monitor Dorian. We urge our customers to prepare for extended power outages and to take this seriously. They're talking in another tweet down below. Don't be alarmed if you get an automated call from us. We are reaching out with some storm threat information before Dorian arrives.
That's why we call Kelly Eagle Eye, because I'm squinting here, and she could read it from 200 yards away.
We don't have anything real close to it, so I'm like, what?
On a serious note, though, they've spent many millions of dollars over the past 10 years, certainly after the outdoor hurricanes, and certainly after Rome. They've spent tons of money, literally, on hardening infrastructure, and they've built smart systems into the power grid, so they should have a much better sense. First, they hope to have more resiliency, but they're going to be power outages. But second, able to tell where the outages are, move in on those zones, those regions. And so calling them generally is not going to matter. It's not going to speed things up because they have a system now that is much more adept, they say, being able to know where the outages are, move in on them, and we'll be able to FPL to give you an idea in terms of recovery times. Remember, storm has to pass before it happens, but they're hoping that all that investment pays off in storms like this.
No one appreciates electricity more until a hurricane goes through and you don't have one.
You, as you always do, so eloquently talking with Sheriff Bradshaw about first responders in their own right. These 16,000 people, including many directly working with FPL, are among the first responders. So salute them in the days to come because they'll be out morning, noon, and night. And there's nothing like a utility truck pulling out that they've been out of power.
Right, or a convoy that you see coming down the highway.
Cavalry.
You know they're on their way.
Let's come over the horizon. So
Exactly.
give them a good salute. We hope they won't be most of it, but they're saying we're going to have outages. We're going to have to deal. Tonight, also a story of neighbors helping neighbors as Hurricane Dorian approaches.
Jason Greenhour picks up the story from Fort Pierce.
3 emergency shelters are now open here in Fort Pierce. There are mandatory evacuations here on the barrier island, and the bridges will be closing as soon as wind speed top 45 miles per hour. But as people here along the Treasure Coast prepare for the uncertainty that is Dorian, that's not stopping them from lending a helping hand.
Francis, Wilma, Irma, Matthew.
Jennifer Ford has been through this before. She's also done this before.
Use it as a drill bit.
So when she finished boarding up her job at a gas station,
Seeing they were over here doing this, so I came over to see if they needed any help. That's how I was raised. You help one another.
despite the uncertainty of this monster Category 5 storm,
We don't know if it's gonna come or if it's gonna go or what's gonna happen. Just kind of do what I gotta do to prepare for everything.
which is exactly what local law enforcement is preaching.
I want it to turn just as much as anybody else does, but we need to be prepared in case it doesn't turn. This is it's a big storm. It's an intense storm. It's as intense as I've seen since I've been there.
Reporting in Fort Pierce, I'm Jason Greenhour, WPTV News Channel 5.
Sobering reality of that offshore shore. Working into the night, we've already seen what it's done in parts of the Bahamas. Closest eye perhaps we ever have track.
Some of those very early bands already starting to come through. All right, Ann Sterling has been checking social media tonight. We just had the Twitter from Florida Power and Light. This is a good way to keep up with the city in which you live, a neighborhood, friends, obviously family, people out of state, but it's a good way to get some information. Let's see, Ann, what have you found?
Yeah, we have been monitoring Twitter. That's where we're at right now. This is our page right here, and we just put this out, a new picture. This is a 7-Eleven in Wellington. As you can see, they are putting their shutters up. They're not taking any chances putting the shutters up ahead of the storm. I live in Wellington, and I call it the Publix near the amphitheater. They put up, many of the other stores in that area put up shutters too, as well in Wellington. Right here, this is the staging area. I think you just showed a similar video, but this is the picture coming out from FPL, ready to respond to power outages across the state. And you can see the convoy of trucks ready to go once the storm passes. And what happens with the power outages, they are ready to go ahead and try to restore the power as quickly as possible. I just went ahead and reset that there and then made it bigger. This is the thing with live TV. So we'll go back. We have another picture that was coming in from Vero Beach, and that was from earlier from one of our reporters. See if I can get it here. Here we go. This is from Matt Sesney reporting this just about 45 minutes ago. Vero Beach, this is what it looks like right now. Some of his video coming in. He said the wind is suddenly strengthening. The rain is starting. So we're starting to see some of the effects of the storm coming in, at least in the Vero Beach area. We'll continue to monitor Instagram. We're getting a lot of messages from Instagram too. So my next time that I see you, hopefully we'll get some of those shots up for you, as many of our viewers on Instagram want to send us some videos and also sending us comments about what they're seeing too. All right.
Vero Beach, one for the other scooter bands that Steve talked about that we could expect and we're now seeing. We want to continue going outside to see how things are developing.
Go back to Jillian Idle on Palm Beach. Jillian?
Well, Kelly, Michael, right now we are on Worth Avenue. If you're just joining us, we were off of South Ocean Boulevard near the beach. That's where police were asking people to kindly leave after the beach is closed at 8 this evening. But I want to show you some places like this gallery here in Palm Beach getting creative with all their supplies. They're writing, "Dorian, please be gentle," very gentle. And if you look inside their storefront, you can see they've gone ahead and wrapped up a lot of their artwork in here. And then just take a look further down Worth Avenue, you can see these sandbags now lining the sidewalk here, protecting a lot of these storefronts. And then just across the street, we're also seeing more plywood, and then the Brooks Brothers here also has some sandbags. Now, I understand that a lot of these stores are typically closed on a Sunday, so it's not always the busiest up and down Worth Avenue. On Saturdays, they see a lot of activity. Sundays, not so much, but again, even quieter out here tonight with Hurricane Dorian potentially approaching this area. Again, we have seen several police officers here from the town of Palm Beach asking people to either go home if they're residents here or to nicely leave the area. They are under mandatory evacuation here. That started at 1 this afternoon, but of course we'll continue to monitor the situation, bring you the very latest on air, but online at WPRB.com. But for now, I'll send it back to you in the studio, but I'm Joey Neidl with 45 in the town of Palm Beach.
You see the streets quiet.
Right, we don't like to go too long before we bring back in our chief meteorologist, Steve Weigel. And someone on Facebook said just a short time ago he's still fully clothed. So far, so good. He hasn't taken the jacket off or rolled the sleeves up or
No,
or
stay
anything
fully clothed.
Yeah, keep it calm.
We're still good. But thank you
I'm
for the.
serious. They did.
I tell you what, though, he is Iron Man along with James Whelan, and Steve will be the first to say an entire behind-the-scenes team of meteorologists backing him up. So we thank you for all you're doing. We hang on every word, as we know you are home to as well, Steve.
Yeah, and we have a great team here, and we are working hard to help you keep track of the storm and what to expect as we go through the overnight and into Monday and Tuesday. Yeah, I mean, this is a monster hurricane that is not very far away from South Florida, and it is headed in this direction, although it is still expected to make a turn toward the northwest on Monday. It's a little bit later in the day. It's the afternoon and into the early evening on Monday, but it is still expected to make that turn. And some of the outer bands are already starting to be felt in our viewing area on the Treasure Coast and Palm Beach County, and that will just continue to intensify tomorrow too. The size of the storm, enormous, and it has been utter destruction, unfortunately, in some of the Bahamian Islands, the outer coast, where it moved through earlier today, mid-landfall, Hopetown around 2 to 3 o'clock in the afternoon. It continues to track toward the west, and on the general motion, we'll bring it around west end, heading into tomorrow. Looks like late tomorrow and into early Tuesday, and it could stall briefly. About 150 miles off our coastline at the present time. The hurricane force winds stretch out 45. Tropical storm force winds stretch out 140. And the outer bands, those outer feeder bands, there's one right there that's pulling through, and a second one just off the coast by about 10 miles that could make it in the next hour. They're moving very quickly. They have heavy rain. They don't last long. But they also contain some 40, maybe 50 mile an hour wind gusts, and there is a slight tornado threat. There's usually not typically a high tornado threat on the western side of the track, but earlier we saw several tornado warnings for Florida, not in our area, but on the west coast. So that's the concern that we may see more. Now, there's the track. So we have a Category 5 at 2 p.m. on Monday. This is a critical time. This is the only critical time left for us, where it is expected to make that turn. It's going to be very slow, though. I say noon into 6 p.m., but I suspect it's going to be more of a 12-hour time period, because it really slows down here, because this is 12 hours, and it moves about 30 miles, maybe. It doesn't move very far, and then it starts to lift north after that. And it's about 50 to 60 miles off the coast at this position on Tuesday, and also northern and eastern Palm Beach County on Monday afternoon, and then it tracks north after that, way up in North Carolina coastline. But here's a close-up look. So the Treasure Coast in the error code and part of Palm Beach County, this may be adjusted at the 11 o'clock update. The new computer models are coming in, and they still indicate that turn eventually toward the northwest at late Monday and early Tuesday. But even with that track, any shift, and let's say that turn is delayed by a few hours, even if it's 4, 5, 6 hours, that brings this storm on its current, it's moving 5 miles an hour. So it brings it in, 20, 30 miles closer to us. And that is, there's too much of a razor thin margin here for stronger winds. So any closer and the winds become much stronger. And that's why we have to watch this closely. Hurricane watch for Palm Beach County, hurricane warning for the Treasure Coast, tropical storm warning for Palm Beach County, and we have the tropical storm watch for the interior. That would include Wellington and Loxahatchee and Belle Glade and Okeechobee, and storm surge 2 to 4 feet on the Palm Beach County side, and 47 on the Treasure Coast, where the storm is expected to get a little closer, and we are also expecting those high tide times around noon and midnight, roughly. Check your local tide times, they do vary, but generally noon and midnight and king tides going on, so that makes the tide level a little bit higher too. We've had some feeder bands already arrive, and I want to bring in James because these have some rain with them, James, and some strong winds too.
Yeah, for sure. Even though the sustained winds aren't all that strong at the moment, inside any of these little cells, these squalls that move on in, they can pack a punch. In fact, this one right here, significant weather advisory with this one, with 45-mile-per-hour winds as this quickly raced from pretty much the Hope Sound in Martin County, went through Jupiter Farms, all the way down to Wellington now, or past Wellington in the Loxahatchee Wildlife Refuge. That all took about 10 minutes for it to do that. Put a tracker on here, but there's no cities down there and the refuge there, but maybe just clip Wellington, that's about all. Up to the north on the Treasure Coast, had that one quick one move through Port St. Lucie, through Indiantown, now moving over the lake there, and a little bit farther up, that quick one that moved through Fort Pierce and St. Lucie Village. Farther up though, Florida Ridge, Vero Beach, yeah, this one blast on through, some gusty winds with that, 35 plus miles an hour as it moves now right over I-95. And that will continue off towards some more rural areas there, pushing off to the west. It may clip Okeechobee if it gets that far. We have another band that's just offshore right now. This one will probably stay offshore, but as the storm gets closer, those will start to pick up in number and intensity, and also the coverage of them too. So watch Vipercast. We're going to go through time here. So this is the overnight hours. And you see kind of a band move through there, another one in the morning hours, and then we get a few more that quickly push on through, off and on. This is Monday around 3 o'clock, so we can expect some tropical storm force winds at this time, Monday, late afternoon or so. And then the squalls and those feeder bands that come through are just going to pick up the wind and the rain blowing sideways. And then as we get to Monday night, this will probably be a very strong feeder band that moves on through, all the way through the Treasure Coast. It kind of pinwheels around the storm. As we get into later in the day, or later in the night, we'll continue to see those come through one after another. And they could pack tropical storm force winds, possibly even hurricane force winds as it stretches up closer to the Treasure Coast.
All right, James, thank you very much. We're approaching the top of the hour at 9 o'clock. Jay Cashmere here alongside my colleague Shannon Cake, taking you through our Hurricane Dorian coverage as we begin the preparation stage. The critical hours set to come right now. Of course, tomorrow we'll be talking about the deteriorating conditions. Now's the time to get those last-minute preparations done if you haven't already.
We were just doing a live Facebook feed hit and chatting with some viewers who had a lot of questions. So in these next 2 hours, we're going to try to take some of those questions and pose them to our meteorologists and get them answered for you. So stay tuned to us right here. We're going to be also visiting, as Michael and Kelly have in the last 2 hours, with members of our crew who are spread out all across our viewing area. And there are varying conditions that are expected in various parts of our viewing area. We're going to start tonight in Boca Raton, one of the areas that has kind of been in and out of the county.
That's right. Jeff Brissack is live there at Boca Raton to tell us more about the conditions there. Jeff.
Yeah, we're here at South Point Pavilion in Boca Raton. We talked to a lot of people today about how they're getting ready. Obviously, it's not the hurricane warning here, but the hurricane watch. Nonetheless, still really important to take this storm incredibly seriously. It's hard to imagine that just right out there into the black abyss of it there, but it is a huge storm doing so much damage. And that damage that people saw in the Bahamas, they saw those videos that we've been sharing all day, and that really kind of kicked things up into another gear for them today. Yesterday, it maybe a little bit of a sigh of relief that, hey, maybe we dodged a bullet. Knowing how strong this storm got and how how close it really is right now and how close it could be. They're really taking this storm seriously here. We talked to a couple of surfers out there today. They were pretty psyched to get in the water today and really enjoy some of these waves. I talked to one guy who says he plans to be out there tomorrow. You know, maybe not the best idea, but that's something he wants to do. Talked to other people. You know, they were still digging up sand. They were trying to get all the sand they could get, some sandbags, and get it ready in their house, just in case with all the water that we could get from rain. So they're really worried about that and trying to get ready for this storm. It's so hard to believe how powerful that storm is, just right out there into the Atlantic Ocean. I'm Jeff.
Look where it's on tonight. Jay and I were saying before we came on the set, we're part of Team Turn. So we hear Jeff talking there, and we know that we're expecting the turn, but of course we have to stay vigilant and cover it minute by minute because any slight change in that path, that expected turn, could be devastating for us.
That'll be critical, and all the elements that we've seen, the track runs that are coming, are expecting another one at the Center at 11 o'clock tonight. Of course, all those provide so many details, the critical data that we need, that our meteorologists look at and study, and we give you, critical to what will come over the next 6 hours, 5 hours into a different update on this. The next few tracks will be so very
Absolutely.
because the detrimental time is right now because it's getting so close to the coastline, and any little shift one way or the other, we're talking 10, 15, 20 miles, talk about it can make a difference in a category 1 or a category 4 storm.
And in that vein, we're really hoping that at this point, what you've heard in the last couple of hours of our forecasting and our weather team talking with you is that we're hoping that your preparations are nearing an end, that tomorrow we're already seeing some of these conditions deteriorate out there. And as sporadic as they may be, you just never know when it's going to pop out. And getting up on a ladder tomorrow midday is not what you should be doing. This preps really need to be done in this very narrowing window right now, and it needs to be in place.
We have time right now to spare, and time to do that, but time is dwindling as we speak. We're getting a lot of video in too, as we just saw Jeff outside of Boca Raton. This is video in from an area called the Cove Palm Beach. It was taken this morning. The person who sent it to us says this boat has been in the water for a few days right now. They're certainly worried after the storm that it could break apart and become an even bigger mess. And I know from a lot of the video that's come in over in the Bahamas right now, it's an absolute mess, the destruction, the devastation. Ann is in the newsroom right now looking through social media and everything coming through right now.
We continue to look at Twitter right now. I wanted to show you, this is an incredible picture here. We just posted it 21 seconds ago, in fact. Sun's out. This is from the NOAA Hurricane Hunters. We know they're hard at work, snapping this incredible picture of the sun shining inside, they say, the eye of Hurricane Dorian. So there you go. You see the picture right here. And what a beautiful shot in a devastating storm. Let's move down a little bit closer. You can see another new video coming in from the Bahamas. This is what we're calling punishing wind and rain as Hurricane Dorian makes landfall in the Bahamas. Another vantage point, if you will. You can see the trees, what this 185 miles per hour winds are doing to these trees. Someone that is obviously decided not to evacuate, to stay put, taking video of this from their porch right there. We'll move up. Once this again is in Wellington, the 7-Eleven in Wellington, not taking any chances, putting up the shutters. There are a lot of stores. I live in Wellington. A lot of stores in Wellington doing the exact same thing with messages to Doreen. Leave us alone. Stay clear of us if you can. I was out earlier today getting some groceries and saw the shutters going up. And the I call it the Publix near the amphitheater, the Wellington amphitheater. All the little stores. There's a hair cutting station there. There's a nail place there. All these little stores putting up their shutters today. We'll continue to monitor what's going on social media right here on Twitter, also on Instagram, and also on Facebook. Jay, Shannon, back to you. Heeding the warnings businesses are and homeowners are as well.
You can see not just along the coastline, but in as well. Whether you're hunkering down or evacuating, WPTV has you covered everywhere. Take your Roku, your Fire Stick, or Apple TV devices with you, and make sure to download the WPTV mobile app. We'll be streaming our live coverage, keeping you informed of the storm every step of the way.
And remember, WPTV, we will be on the air if and when your power goes out. So if you look at your screen right now, grab a pen and paper and jot down these radio stations and program your old-fashioned radio, battery-operated radio, to these deployment right here that you see on the screen. If you do need to go to your radio to hear our broadcast, you can listen to us right here on these radio stations, all from Palm Beach County to Treasure Coast.
If the conditions get bad, this could be your lifeline. This and the WPTV mobile app, WPTV.com. All investment, all good resources for you right now to have.
We want to go live. We're not sure if the governor is at the podium quite yet. Is he speaking? a low tide, I understand. Okay, so earlier today, Governor's been all over the place today, and he's held a number of briefings. He's really getting the message out. You need to stay alert. You need to be listening to law enforcement and really stay tuned into the field.
That's right. The governor, like so many of us, monitoring all the developments of this storm. Resources are available statewide to help families potentially impacted by Dorian. That includes thousands of National Guard members who are ready to assist.
Listen to their local authorities and have an evacuation plan ready if you are ordered to evacuate. Safety comes first, and you don't want to mess with the storm that is going at 185 miles per hour.
Earlier today, the governor suspended tolls on 9 highways as Hurricane Dorian approaches Florida.
I was listening to that briefing and I jotted this down because it was right around the time that Steve Weigel had said, this is razor thin. The margin of error here in terms of getting this tropical storm force wind or something that's more significant is just a razor thin edge. And the governor said earlier today during that briefing, it is perilously close to our state. It could have major impact to us like that. So that is Steve Weigel. That's how razor thin it is.
I would say a shift of 20 miles would make a huge difference in the wind speeds we start to feel, Shannon. We're pretty much guaranteed the tropical storm force winds Monday and Tuesday, but any shift toward the west, we're talking like 15, 20, 25 miles, and we get into a big threat with the hurricane force winds. Now near the center, that's where we have the winds at 185 miles an hour, really on the right side of the track. So this area right here, and they drop off quickly out 45 miles. That's the extent of the hurricane force winds. The tropical storm force winds now stretch out 140 miles from the center. So that wind field is expanding. Not surprised, but it is expanding, and it probably will expand a little more on Monday as it starts to make that turn. It's about 150 miles off our coast. There's a breakdown of the hurricane and the tropical storm force winds. And the radar tonight, you can see the outer bands already arriving to South Florida. These will dump a quick inch of rain in spots and could cause some localized flooding. They'll also bring a little bit of a tornado threat, although usually the western side of the track like this isn't too significant. We did have earlier tornado warnings to the west, so we're keeping an eye on that. And we're also keeping an eye on the gusty winds that pop up out of the east too. The forecast track, which will be updated at 11 o'clock tonight, has a powerful hurricane moving across Grand Bahama overnight and tomorrow. And by tomorrow late in the day, we'll end up around West End and Grand Bahama, and roughly 60 miles off our coast. The latest GFS coming in the last few minutes indicates that it's matching up with this official forecast. And there's a near stalled category 4 or 5 hurricane over West End for about 12 hours. It moves very slowly for 12 hours as it makes that turn and eventually moves northwest. And I tell you, we were just checking out the latest computer models. We are going to get beach erosion, perhaps like we've never seen before. So just verify. This is going to be a tremendous event along the coastline. I think we're going to see water inundating some coastal roads that haven't seen that situation before. And obviously there are other areas that are much more susceptible, but I suspect the waves are going to create some serious issues for us, even on this track, even more so on this track, Monday and Tuesday. And then it lifts up to the northeast after that as they're weakening to a category 3. There's a close-up look at the track because this is what we really are concerned about in the next 48 hours with it. See, there's a 12-hour time period right there, and look how much smaller that is. So that's the distance in 12 hours, and then it picks up speed and almost doubles or triples the distance again. Critical time, it's going to be painfully slow too, at least 12 hours, making that slow turn toward the northwest. And James, we were talking about the wave bites just a few minutes ago. I worry about our beaches on them. This is an epic beach erosion situation that's shaping up.
Yeah, massive wave heights expected across the area, and it's just that prolonged time. It'd be one thing if it just flew in, we got big waves, and then it was gone. It's just going to sit there, and just the beaches are going to continue to take a pounding, and I think we may even see some wash through on some of the barrier islands. Now, let's go through time here of the wave heights, and look at this getting close. Look at this black dot here. Those are seas 20 to 35 feet out in the Gulf Stream. That's where it'll be biggest. We'll still get big waves along the coast. You see the purples reach all the way down the coast, and stop this here at 1 a.m. This is about the peak, I think, of the wave action, even though it hangs around for a while. But that's right at the king tide, high tide. Like Steve was saying, it's right around midnight and noontime. So there's the one high tide cycle. There's another high tide cycle, and you still see those seas 25 to 35 feet actually moved up a little bit, but still, since it's just stalled out there, this will be piling all this water in. So not only the wave action, that wind just pushes the water down too. Finally, by time we get to Wednesday and Thursday, things start to relax and the water goes out. The wind's more southwest anyways. That'll help blow it all away and recede to normal time. So we do have a storm surge, and we could see even 2 to 4 feet in some areas of the Palm Beaches here, and on the Treasure Coast could even get up to 6 feet in some areas. And it's not just along the coast. It's the intercoastal. It's up any rivers and tributaries anywhere, especially down into Stewart and Port St. Lucie. It could go all the way up the rivers there, and this surge will be pushing in here for a couple of high tide cycles, a good 24 hours or so. Now, we had a Facebook question that said, well, what is storm surge? What is it all about? Well, we have the normal sea level tide. Then we get all this wind wave action blowing on in. That raises the ocean up to a surge level here. The wind continues stronger, and that ocean raises up a little bit farther. There's 3 feet. A little bit farther, there's 6 feet. You could actually see some of this on the Treasure Coast if it gets closer. Of course, the houses close to the beach are not that high, so some of that water could make it into some of the houses there. And I think we have a lot of low-lying roads south of Hutchinson Island, South Hutchinson Island. We have some areas like near Bathtub Beach where it's just road and water on each side. We could see some of that wash away. We could see South Palm Beach where it's real low-lying there. We could also see some issues there too. So it's going to be very dangerous on the barrier islands here. And I know I have a lot of my surfer buddies saying, hey, the waves are going to be epic. You can't go in the water in this. This one's just too close for us this time. If it was farther offshore, that would have been great, but this is too dangerous, too close to us this time. Just going to have to wait for the next one.
James, we appreciate that. Was Paula on our Facebook Live asking that question. So if you have some questions you'd like to pass along to our meteorologist, hit us up on Facebook, or we'll pass it along to James and Steve here in studio, right here in this broadcast.
We want to make this interactive with you as we go through the night. We've been trying to incorporate all of your questions too into our broadcast and our programming. So feel free at any point in time, send us those questions. A lot of people are sending in videos as well. I had a chance to scope a lot of these videos earlier from people, some Facebook friends who had contacted people in the Bahamas, sent video to us, and the video coming out of the Bahamas is absolutely devastating. Ann is in the news. We're going through social media right now and had a chance to preview some of those and we'll bring some of them to us. Ann?
Yeah, Jay, we want to remind you, we do have reporters here up and along the coast, all the way down to Boynton Beach, Delray Beach, all the way up the coast, up to Cocoa Beach, Vero Beach. Matt Tesney in Paxton, Vero Beach, he just posted this about an hour ago now, but you can see some of the outer bands just coming through in Vero Beach. Sorry about that. Here we go. This is live, and this is some of the winds coming through right now. Jay, you were talking about the Bahamas. Let's get to that video, some of the video coming into our newsroom. This is what it looks like in the Bahamas. You can see the devastation here. This is a storm, a Category 5 storm, 185 miles per hour winds. You can see that boat could not even bear the brunt of this storm here. The rain, I'm reading article after article, and I am monitoring social media. People are talking about how much water is actually hitting the Bahamas. I read up to 12 inches. In some places, they're saying it could be up to 24 inches, and you can see what this storm has actually done to these beautiful islands here. Again, we'll continue to monitor all these videos. This is the video, new video from the Bahamas coming into our newsroom. We'll continue to monitor Twitter, Facebook, and also Instagram. As you can see the devastation, that car right there completely turned upside down from 185 miles per hour wind. Jay and Shannon, we'll send it back to you, but I'll see you in just a couple of minutes with more video from our team of crews up and along the Florida coast.
All the 5 miles per hour winds gusting over 200 miles per hour. That goes before getting in, and Steve mentioned just to sit here and go out and slow track, creating a lot of issues for future erosion for us as well. We talked to Rosie Lopez in North Eleuthera in the Bahamas by phone as Hurricane Dorian's powerful feeder bands passed over her home. She says she didn't experience a direct hit, but she did experience tropical storm force winds. That's what she had to say.
It's pretty ugly right now. We're like in the outer bands. The surf, you really, really rough and high right now. The wind's blowing. I've lost a few trees out back and in the front. And I thought it'd be over by now, but we've been getting hit all night, and I think we lost power sometime between 3 a.m. and 6 a.m. Praying for the people of Abaco and Grand Bahama, because I can't even imagine that storm hitting here at that strength.
We've also seen reports in the Abaco Islands, as reported, there are torn roofs, as you saw what Ann showed us, cars flipped over, everything sort of shattered and splintered, and then the storm.
So just like you at home, you're preparing. Hopefully you're mostly prepared for the storm. We are also here at News Channel 5. We are prepared as well. Crews are coming in. Many of them sleeping here. Our storm team is sleeping here. So we are here for you. We are ready to ride this storm out, and we are going to be, just like we have so many times before, right alongside you and do this together. Bye.
I want to welcome you back to our continued coverage of Hurricane Dorian as we move through the preparation stage, which will eventually turn into the duration stage, and then, of course, the aftermath as we see where will this storm go. Good question tonight. When will the turn happen? That's critical. That's to come. There are a lot of key elements set to come overnight and early morning.
And with every track, it seems we get some glimmer of new information that might suggest what this thing is going to do, for goodness sake. I mean, we know you're just as frustrated as we are.
And there with all the answers. Bring them in. Meteorologist Steve Weigel. Steve, tell us more right now about really the positioning as we speak, and as you're so good at this and these elements, reading all the data that comes in. Right now, that turn is critical here. What are you looking at? What are you seeing?
Yeah, that term is really the only critical time left for us, and that'll happen this time tomorrow. About this time tomorrow, it should start, or shortly before. It's about 153 miles away from South Florida and moving toward the west, but it is still forecast to turn northwest later Monday and into Tuesday. The tricky part here is that it's painfully slow. It's slowing down now. It's expected to get slower, and by the time we get into Monday night, it may be midnight before we have a really good idea that it's actually we're starting to make that turn. So it's been moving due west for about 2 days now at least, and tracking now across Grand Bahama. Looks like a landfall will happen in, I would say, the next half hour. Landfall is technically not when the eye wall gets land, it's when the center of the storm makes land, and you can see that has not happened yet, but it is pretty close to that. It has to be an amazing night across the eastern side of Grand Bahama. And unfortunately, they're going to be in the eye wall of this hurricane for an extended period of time, and it may be even longer, because once it makes it into around the western end or west end of Grand Bahama, it is going to sit there for an extended period of time before it starts to lift north. Here's what I mean. There is the 2 a.m. position. So this is just after midnight. Right now we have winds at 185. It's moving west at 5. The pressures, it's come up a little bit, but not much. At 9:15 now. And then generally west into tomorrow afternoon. And then we start to see a turn. But, and that looks like a few hours. That's 12 hours there. And it moves very little in 12 hours. So that's Monday afternoon into Tuesday overnight. It's a long time period, a short distance. And then as we get into Tuesday morning, it starts to lift. The two things are happening here. The high is weakening. The trough is building in. It helps pick it up, and that's why it's picking up that forward motion and then pushing up the East Coast. Now, could it still come in across South Florida? Could it make a landfall here? Yeah, absolutely. It can make a landfall here. That's why the error cone is up across the Treasure Coast and parts of Palm Beach County. And I think a lot of people feel like this whole forecast flip-flopped in the last 24 hours. There's been a slight adjustment to the west. That's about it. The error cone has pretty much been the Treasure Coast in northern Palm Beach County. It's fluctuated a little, about 10, 15 miles, but this track has been in place for a couple of days now. Earlier, late in the work week, it was more with a landfall here, but this is the track. Let me take another look. So there's a 12-hour time period there from 2 p.m. on Monday to 2 a.m. on Tuesday. That is going to be a very slow transition to that northwest turn. In fact, it doesn't completely take place until we get into Tuesday afternoon. All right, the breakdown. We have hurricane watch for Palm Beach County, hurricane warning for the Treasure Coast. The hurricane shutters should be up or on the way. You have a little window tomorrow morning to do that before conditions really start to go downhill. We have tropical storm warning for Palm Beach County. We have tropical storm watch for the interior. Storm surge warning, 2 to 4, 4 to 7 on the Treasure Coast. That warning is across the area. Tried to get the Weather Service to shade this in more. Maybe after this hurricane they will, because it's hard to see on the map. And there are the computer models that continue to update tonight, but they still show that track. Some of them still bring it in around the Cape with a landfall there. That would be wouldn't be unusual. It would be a first. I haven't seen that happen before in recorded history about the last, since 1951. It has not happened. And then the official forecast takes it up along the coastline after that. And just a quick look at the power outage map. These numbers continue. This is the probability of seeing power outages. It's about what are we at? Medium. We're not. Don't see any high values in Palm Beach County, the Treasure Coast. I think these numbers will climb a little bit because the storm is expected to get a little bit closer. So no generators run in garages or inside. Don't use candles, flashlights, and batteries. All right, over to James. We are just starting to feel some of the beat advantage, James.
Yeah, those outer squalls are making their way in right now, and you can see the first one kind of just went through about an hour or so ago. And this particular cell, look at that right there, was a pretty strong one. There was a significant weather advisory for that one, 45 mile per hour winds. It mixes down here from the upper levels, very strong wind, and then that down push brings them down to the surface. You can see that has fallen apart since then, and that band sitting just offshore of the Palm Beaches. It may get close enough, but I think we're going to have to wait for the next round to move on through. A couple of them moving through Vero right now, particularly strong one there, just about to move through maybe the outlet malls or so. We're looking at another one just off of Hudson Island, south of Port Pierce. That'll come on shore near the power plant there in just a few moments. Temperatures, we're looking at 70s to low 80s, but it's so muggy and sultry out there. It feels very, very tropical. And we're going to start to switch over to using this tool here, our very own live radar, the only one in our area here. And we see some of those popping up there just offshore. Here's the forecast on Vipercast. So we're going to show you through time here we'll go, and it's going to show, well, there's another band moving through into the overnight hours. We get up in the morning, a little bit of a break, and then we're looking at around 11 o'clock or so. We're seeing another band, give or take an hour or so. These aren't exact precise times, but we could see another one move through all the way up and down the coast. And this is how they're going to do it. They're going to spiral in like that, move down to the south. Spiral in, move down to the south. That thing's going to sit out there for 24 hours, so we're going to continue to have that here off and on here all the way through Monday, Labor Day, through Monday night. Here's Monday night, the strong one's coming in. This is when the storm's getting even closer, at its closest approach too, so we're going to see these pick up in intensity and pick up in number too. They're going to keep coming in one after another. And then as it gets closer to the Treasure Coast, it starts to pull north. Treasure Coast will start to see more here mid-Tuesday to late Tuesday. Sustained winds at this time will be near tropical storm force. So any of these squalls and feeder bands that move through are going to mix down even stronger winds. So let's see what the wind gusts will be. Now, these are the gusts, not the sustained winds. And you can see by Monday at 11 a.m., that squall that moved through that we just tracked on ViperCast, it could contain up to tropical storm force gusts. They're 47 miles per hour, 41 or so. Wouldn't be surprised. Upper 40s out there. As we get later in the day on Monday, wind gusts with the next band that comes through a little bit higher. In fact, we're seeing 50s and 60s for wind gusts as those later squalls move through. Now this is Tuesday morning, that is, and look at how close that is. This green area right here, that's hurricane force wind. Steve was talking about that razor line. Here it is right here. That's maybe a mile off the coast. If we need to jog, we'll put that green area on top of us, and these numbers go sky high. We'll be in the 70s there with hurricane force winds. As we get into Tuesday night here, we see up on the Treasure Coast, that's when you're going to max out with the strongest wind gusts moving on through. And then once it finally makes up its mind and moves out, it's going to do it quickly. We're going to get this thing out of here by Wednesday. Generally improving conditions. The wind's still a little bit breezy, but they'll be settling down quite significantly. Coming up in a little bit, I'm going to show you how much rain we're expecting for our current forecast.
Before we let you go, we have a couple questions for you. One is, and we went through the asked you to see this, when you say it's kind of sitting there and stalling, really so it seems like you don't like that. Why is it when you're saying that the storm's moving in a system that's sitting, why don't you like that?
Because pretty much it can wobble anyway. And we have no breathing room here with this one. It's going to be so close that any little wobble means a significant change in our weather. And when it just sits out there, normally it doesn't just, it's like a 2-year-old. It's not going to sit and stay put. It's going to just meander around a little bit for a while there. And any little jog, even if it's just a few miles, I think you just saw that few miles meant the world from tropical storm conditions to hurricane.
Again, thank you. And keep those questions coming to us. We've got some lists. We'll be talking to our meteorologist at moments during this broadcast to try and answer those questions for you. So we certainly appreciate bringing them in. These moments that we're talking to the meteorologist, we see the overnight. We're already seeing wind gusts. Overnight tomorrow, again, we'll talk about the separations that are in place. Tomorrow, conditions will really deteriorate. 2 p.m. Monday to 2 a.m. Tuesday. Steve saying really the next one making that move right around the western waiting to see what will happen. A lot of people ask me.
What part of the team part of the team? So with all of this, we do have all of our crews stick up and out of the all the way down. It's supposed to a lot more is in Stewart this evening. You want to tell us everything now? Well, downtown Stewart is all ready and prepped for Dorian. Buildings here, they're shuttered up, they're boarded up. This is all businesses and restaurants all along downtown Stewart. But just because they're shuttered up doesn't mean that they're closed. Take a look across the street, you see a restaurant that's open right now, and it's actually packed. And that's what we've been seeing here in downtown Stewart ever since we got here. Actually surprisingly busy. People are out and about. It's sort of the last hurrah, so you see a lot of people tell us they're trying to escape that cabin fever,
for a few more hours. The last night, maybe, who knows? Lots of people are trying to take a look at the water to see the first effects of anything. We definitely felt a little bit of the wind picking up here. And then also a lot of people talking to me about the fact that everyone here is on edge. One couple tells me that they've actually lived through Hurricane Andrew in 1992 and they lost everything. When you look at satellite pictures of those two storms, it looks eerily similar. And that's what a lot of people here, they still remember, they still know what that felt like and what they went through. So everyone here on edge at the same time, ready and prepared, and also trying to enjoy as much time outside, out and about before they have to be sheltered in place. So that's what we're seeing here in Stewart. Back to you guys. We did everything they said we did. Whatever we ended up doing dealt, we all pulled together and we did. Cummings International Airport, meanwhile, do you have any comings and goings to do in Cummings International Airport where we see some fall? They're advising all travelers who plan to come there to the night flight. Actually, just to clarify. All of us that TDIA does not self-economic side. So if have travel plans, do not expect to show up at TDIA and stay with them for the duration of the storm until flights resume. You cannot stay at Cummings International Airport.
And to pick up on that, Ann Shannon, I was literally just texting the PIO Fort Lauderdale International Airport. Fort Lauderdale International Airport ceasing operations at 12 noon Monday. So PBIA closed Monday. Fort Lauderdale International closing at noon Monday. If you have any loved ones trying to get in, probably not, but trying to get out at noon at Fort Lauderdale, the airport will close Monday. PBIA closed tomorrow.
And earlier, the governor said MIA was still open. We'll double check that fact and pass along before you correct on that. Earlier in the press briefing, Governor Ron DeSantis saying that MIA is still flying.
A lot of things are happening outside as we see the speeder bands starting to come through the area right now. I want to toss it out to Jason Grinauer right now. He is in Fort Pierce with the very latest on how things look up there. Jason.
Yes, and we've been seeing those feeder bands, the very most, the outermost parts of this storm come through here in Fort Pierce throughout the evening. Those really quick, heavy downpours throughout the town, just kind of dumping buckets of water here on us. So those are moving through. The other most noticeable thing that's going on is the wind. The wind has definitely picked up here throughout the course of the evening. And if you compare it to last night, it really is night and day here in Fort Pierce along the Treasure Coast. Last night, there were lots of people up and down here. We are near the marina here. There were plenty of bars and restaurants that were open. Tonight, a lot of those are both boarded up and a lot of them are shuttered up. You're walking past a local tiki bar earlier as they were zipping up everything. They were putting garbage bags on everything and said they were closing until further notice. Even the grocery store here at Fort Pierce is closing at 10 p.m. tonight. So one last chance if you need to get out there to get bottled water and other supplies. They do have them. However, they are closing at 10 and will not be reopening again tomorrow as we start feeling the storm move its way through here. The temperature, the skies here, even at night, you can tell it's a lot different here in Fort Pierce. We will, of course, keep you updated. For now, we are reporting live in Fort Pierce. I'm Jason Grenauer. We'll set it back inside studio.
There's a lot going on outside right now. I want to welcome in meteorologist Steve Weigel. We have a lot of questions.
We sure do.
This is one of my favorite times during hurricane coverage because we can hit you raw and talk to you about the questions.
No tough questions.
The code's still on, too.
That's right.
Really done.
Sleeves haven't been rolled up yet, so we're in good shape.
Yeah. We'll be for another day.
All right. Okay. Question for you. Lots of questions coming in from Facebook, folks on Facebook, social media platforms, but also just general phone calls and emails as well. One of them that I heard earlier, and you had mentioned that there was a possibility of tornadoes.
Yes.
What was the hurricane season in recent memory that had that swath of time, like a 2-3 hour time, that everybody was running through safety?
Irma.
Irma. Okay.
Yeah, where essentially during Irma on the Treasure Coast, we had dozens of tornado warnings, and pretty much the Weather Service in Melbourne, they cover the Treasure Coast. They essentially put up a 3-hour tornado warning for most of the Treasure Coast. Just coming one after another after another. It was a very unique experience.
So do people need, one of the questions came in from a viewer from Brianna Reed, will we need a safe room? And do you expect anything like that?
There is the chance for more tornado warnings. We had a couple today, not in our viewing area, but just to the west. And a little surprising since it's so early on, although some of the tornado issues or tornado threats that you see in hurricanes are on the outer bands, the very outer feeder bands, and that's what we're starting to see arrive at the coastline right now. But it's the track is a little different for us this time. It's one that's coming in off the ocean. It's not coming in from the south like Irma did, and that makes a big difference too, because typically we see the greatest tornado threat on what we call the right side of the track. So the right, if you cut the hurricane you see on the screen back there is coming into the coastline. So if you cut a straight line through the middle of it, the top half is the right side of the track, and we should not experience that. Well, the hurricane's moving west now, but it is expected to occur. So we probably won't be in the greatest threat for this city.
So no safe room needed, or how many to see?
Hopefully everyone in the homes wherever they live has at least an idea where they can go if the weather gets really bad. Because even on a normal thunderstorm day, you can get a tornado threat here, and you may have to go in there for the storm gets through. So it's a good idea just to have it in place anyway. I think it's unlikely of a storm, but that's all part of your hurricane preparation plan anyway. This is something you should know before the season even starts.
What's your
safe room?
Yeah.
Lay in an evacuation area. Have my supplies. Have my shutters ready.
Let's get scientific here. We have some really good questions. Danielle Cruz asking, why is Dorian slowing down? We've been wondering, where is the Bermuda High and those other factors that we're supposed to steer this?
Help us out here.
It feels like 2004 all over again.
Yes.
We're watching Francis and Pete, and it is the same Bermuda High that is steering this hurricane in toward Florida. That short term. In the long term, I think what we're going to see is the storm, that high weekend and the storm have the ability to turn a little farther north. And there's one more ingredient, and that's a trough that's coming down that will help get up through and push it northwest. The problem here is, and I just did a little bit of math of my own, looking at the dots for the hurricane for each position, and between Monday late in the day and Tuesday, so it'd be Monday afternoon, 2 p.m. until Tuesday morning, a 12-hour time period, this hurricane is forecast to go about 20 miles, maybe 25 miles. You're talking about a storm that's moving 2 to 3 miles an hour. If you can walk faster than that.
Right.
And if you just do not like stationary or drifting hurricanes, and the computer models don't like it, I don't like it. I want to see it going somewhere and have higher confidence in the track, the direction when it's moving, not just meandering over West End. And to make matters worse, it's 60 miles off our coast. It's not a few hundred miles.
Here's a question from Brian Eckstein. If we don't see the turn, he says at 8 a.m., but that's not what you were saying. You said between 2 and 6.
Oh, yeah. The turn has been changing. The time.
Right.
This whole storm, the timing has changed. If you look back to early in the week, Monday and Sunday and last week, the landfall, we were supposed to get a landfall on Saturday. Now we're talking Sunday and then Monday, and now we're talking the landfall, but we're talking closest approach on Monday and Tuesday. So everything has been pushed back as it has the timing for that turn, and now it appears to be this painfully slow 12-hour time period between late Monday into, I would say, sunrise Tuesday, where it makes this just gradual, almost drifting turn west. It'd be awful just monitoring that because it's going to be so slow.
What will we see here during that time while that's happening?
Yeah, well, that's the closest approach to Palm Beach County. So we pick up more of the bands, and we get into some tropical storm force winds. We'll likely see 40, 50, 55, 60 mile an hour wind gusts. Or no, it's the same wind, I should say. And the Treasure Coast will see about the same later Monday and Tuesday, because that will be the closest approach of the center of the storm until then. Also, any shift, that's why any shift west from this storm is just critical, because it just brings in now suddenly 70 and 80 mile an hour winds and strong winds. We're talking, let's say the storm's supposed to go to West End on Monday and pretty much stop and then start to turn. Well, let's say it doesn't stop and it goes another 4 or 5 hours west. Now it's 20 miles closer to us. And that is a huge. Normally, that wouldn't make any difference at all. This time, it's a huge.
Which is what Brian back in here. And they ended by saying, thank you for everything. Oh,
You too.
so you do work hard.
Steve, thank you very much. Back with more after the break.
Welcome back to our continuing coverage of Hurricane Dorian tonight. Jay Cashmere, Shannon Cake here in the News Channel 5. We're going to get right to Steve Weigel and James Whelan here in just a moment. But first, as we mentioned, our team of reporters are out there on the street and they're watching these bands that are starting to move through. Miranda Christian's out there, in fact, and she's in Boynton Beach tonight. Miranda?
Yes, and we are on the far east side of Boynton Beach. We're technically in Briny Breezes, which is a small community on the barrier island right across the intercoastal. And today we were with police as they were going around and checking with everyone in this mandatory evacuation zone. And they were checking with everyone, making sure they knew they had to leave and get out as soon as possible. They were asking everyone to do that. And this is an area that is known to flood during storms. And on top of that, it's king tides. So they have already started seeing some of that flooding from the king tides. Earlier today, the water was up over the sidewalks. And so right now what we're seeing, it's windy out here. We've gotten a few rainstorms as some of those bands have come in, but nothing quite severe or anything yet, just a few sprinkles and wind. It's really humid out here right now, but we haven't seen anything yet. We do see police officers still going around the community right now. We just saw one go out of the street. We'll have that whole story coming up in our 10 and 11 o'clock newscast. Reporting live in Boynton Beach, I'm Miranda Christian, WPTV, Channel 5.
Miranda, thank you very much. You talked about a lot of the press conferences that I saw today dipping in and out as I was getting my family ready to evacuate out. All talked about that critical time if you're in a mandatory evacuation zone to leave because the law enforcement personnel cannot get to you after. So right. It's so imperative. And I think for them, this is where they really are focusing on people getting out. So if you haven't left, if you're in a mandatory evacuation zone, it's a good opportunity right now to leave because your window is closed this weekend. For law enforcement, water, so much water.
Sheriff Rick Bradshaw was here at our 7 o'clock coverage of Hurricane Dorian here, and he said that. He said men and women in law enforcement, they've left their families to be out here to serve you. So please heed the warnings because it makes it 10 times more difficult. When you haven't abided by what they've asked you to do, and then you get hurt and they have to go in harm's way to save you or help you. So that's the reason for the warnings, and we all need to be listening to them tonight.
Person we're listening to very closely, our team of meteorologists, including Steve Weigel. Steve, where's the storm right now?
It is about 150 miles due east of West Palm Beach, and it is bearing down in Grand Bahama now. It moved through the outer coast, and now It is tracking right down the spine of Grand Bahama. This is an incredible hurricane that will end up, that eye will end up right here tomorrow morning, and then sit there, essentially sit there for about 12 hours before it starts to move north. This is going to be a massive beach and ocean event for South Florida, with beach erosion like we have maybe never seen before. Just sitting over an area for an extended period of time, it's going to be catastrophic, I'm afraid, for some coastal areas of South Florida. So about 142, I just put the ruler on it. The tropical storm force winds, they stretch out 140 miles from the center. So that wind field has expanded. It's actually a little bit larger since this morning, and the hurricane force winds very compact, about 40. Well, that's about average for, although this, even though the hurricane strength is 185, going out 45 miles is pretty standard for a hurricane now at this point. There's the look at the radar now coming out of Grand Bahama, and you can see the outer bands working in across South Florida. Here's another solid one right here. We have more that'll push in overnight. And if you've been through hurricanes before, you know you'll get the outer bands working through, gusty winds, some heavy rainfall. Doesn't last more than 10 or 20 minutes, and then you get a lull, and then you get a second band coming in, and then a third, and eventually they're a little bit stronger. They'll go from maybe 25 to 35 mile an hour wind gusts to 45, and maybe even higher. The forecast track, as I said, we'll take it in. There's Monday 2 p.m. Close, relatively close to the west end of Grand Bahama, and then that turn takes place. Now this distance here, is about 24 miles roughly over 12 hours. We're talking the hurricane moving 2 to 3 miles an hour. It's half the speed that it's going right now, and it's going slow now. So that's a painfully slow turn that it makes. And this distance here is about 40 to 45. So it slows its speed down dramatically, and then picks it up again as it makes that turn. It will sit over this area off our coast, roughly 60 miles off our coast, for about 12 hours. Most of the models have that stall or drifting before it starts to lift. There's a close-up view. So I'm moving at a reasonable speed through here at about 5-6 miles an hour. That's slowing up, but then slowing down to half of that and making a 25-30 mile journey in 12 hours before it starts to get picked up by the trough and pushed off. Also, come back to this, the error cone is in the Treasure Coast and parts half of coastal Palm Beach County, and the error, and so we could see a track. This is why this margin of the error is so thin, so just a very slim margin, because if it does continue to drift a little farther to the west, and then let's say it still makes the turn, but it's out here, turns here in the error cone still, and it's not very far to the west, that brings hurricane force winds into the coastline and is more of a threat to our area. There's the wind field. So tropical storm force, the sustained winds arrive tomorrow afternoon, and they continue into Monday night, and they push from Palm Beach County into the Treasure Coast. There's Tuesday, almost the entire coastal area, and the stronger winds, the 50 and 60 mile an hour winds just off the coast at this point, and they in fact touch the coastline from Fort Pierce and Hutchinson Island into Sebastian and Vero on Tuesday before it starts to push away. All right, I want to bring in James Whelan perhaps in a minute. I'll quickly show you the watches and warnings. Hurricane watch for Palm Beach County. If you have shutters and you haven't put them up, you have a small window, I would think, tomorrow morning. There will be gusty winds. Be careful, but it really starts to kind of go downhill in the afternoon with the more persistent winds. Treasure Coast has a hurricane warning, tropical storm warning for Palm Beach County, and we have a tropical storm watch for the interior. That includes the Wellington area. That line right there, that's 441, roughly. Well, not roughly, it is 440. We stopped to Okeechobee. And we have a storm surge warning for all of the Treasure Coast and for Palm Beach County, 2 to 4 feet above in Palm Beach County, 4 to 7 on the Treasure Coast. And the high tide times are roughly around noon and midnight. Within an hour or two, you have to check your individual tide time. It changes dramatically, but those are the rough estimates on the tide times. And the king tides taking place too. All right, we are feeling the effects with feeder bands already working in, and James has been tracking those during the evening. We've had a couple of pretty good ones so far, right, James?
Yeah, there's been some with some punch, 45-mile-per-hour winds. We had a significant weather advisory with that one. Here's the center inching a little bit closer here. The eye wall now on top of Grand Bahama, and there we are, that close. Seeing, here's that first little band that moved on through. The next one is offshore, and looks like that one will stay offshore there, but right there, just barely stay offshore. But the next one that's going to pivot around, we may see brush up against the coast, and that'll probably be in the overnight hours. I'll show you Vipercast in a second here, but here's it's just offshore, some gusty winds and squally weather as that moves south. This was the one that had 45-mile-per-hour winds, not quickly dissipated as it moves to the south. As a lot of these will, they're going to come on shore the strongest, and then they'll get weaker as they push down. This one here, almost, well, it made it into Okeechobee there. You're seeing some gusty winds, quick little bout of rain there. Another one just moved through Vero, too. We're tracking this one, just moved into South Hutchinson Island there from Jensen Beach down to Sailfish Point, Port Salerno right now. Looking at some heavy rain and some gusty winds with this. Wouldn't be surprised, 35 or so mile-per-hour winds, but it's going to be brief. They come in very quickly and they leave very quickly, too. And we're going to see, you can see some banding already out there, and then the outer area of the hurricane there, of the stronger part of it, just entering live Viper 5 max. Now, let's go through time. Here's another band that moves through. So this is the overnight hours, gets a little bit closer. Here comes another one. Look at this. So this is around late morning, early lunchtime hours here that comes on through, and that one will be stronger. That one can contain 50-mile-per-hour winds with that. And as we go later in the day, another one may move through, and then we'll see stronger ones move through by tomorrow night. And even on Tuesday, because the storm now slowing down at this point in time, it's just going to be band after band after band. By Tuesday afternoon, we could see some really strong ones moving on through, and they could pack a punch. We could see 60-plus mile-per-hour winds with those. And then the transition up towards the Treasure Coast to see the worst of it will be Tuesday afternoon and night. And then finally by Wednesday, we'll start to taper it off. Now, how much rain are we talking? We're not talking about a big amount of rain. However, the big amount of rain is just offshore, so any little wobble will bring a lot more than 3 to 5 inches or so up and down our coastline. Notice mainly it's confined to the coastline. You head back towards the lake, it's significantly less. But like I said, if that gets a little bit closer, or we see that banding set up while it's stalled, and we get that training effect where you'll get a band move in and another one, all in the same area. Some of these numbers could be a lot higher locally, and we'll definitely keep an eye on that potential coming up.
James, we want to bring you in or to stay with you here. We're getting a lot more questions in from our viewers, specifically our viewers in our western communities and all the way out to Clewiston, around the lake, Royal Palm Beach, Wellington, Randy in Royal Palm Beach asking where are they right now. Steve touched on this as far as a hurricane watch, tropical storm warning. Where are they right now? Steve mentioned 441. That line there separates, right?
Right. So 441 right now separates the tropical storm warning to the east and the watch to the west. So you're more likely to see those tropical storm force winds east of 441. A little bit less likely, but you'll probably see the tropical storm force gusts and those squalls that move on through, even west of 441. Even by the lake, you could see that too.
Thank you very much. We'll keep tabs on things as they transpire as well. All of us waiting for that all-important forecast to come up at 11 o'clock right now. That will be the next track from the National Hurricane Center. Of course, all these tracks so indicative of what's to come at that time.
It's fascinating to watch Steve and James kind of behind the scenes, because they get kind of advanced advisories that'll come and they'll, say, and they'll discuss it. And then, sure enough, the advisory comes out and they've almost predicted it. Or they've come to air and said it and said, this is probably what's going to happen in the advisory. So we're watching some of that happen. So it'll be very telling, like you said. The 11 o'clock advisory comes out, and we're right here. We're not going to leave you. We're staying with you through all of this. We've been waiting and searching for a lot of video out of the Bahamas.
Right. We have a new video that just came in on Twitter and Sterling, monitoring our social media right now. Ann, what do you have?
We actually got this from James's Twitter page. I think we're on Twitter right now. Yes, this is from his Twitter page. He posted this video a little while ago, and I think we retweeted it on our WPTV page. But you can see it says, wow, new video coming in out of the Bahamas. The surge from Hurricane Dorian And here's the video right here coming in, and you can see the flooding. And we continue to show you video of the storm surge and the water and how much rain has actually hit the Bahamas. And this is just another moment here. Our team is now posting, I just heard a moment ago, another video that was sent into Kelly Dunn showing an apartment complex. We're going to get that to you the next time that we see you. But I wanted to show you this, a beautiful bond here between a daughter and a father, a touching moment right here during this horrible, devastating hurricane. The message here, be safe, Daddy. This little girl wishing her dad, who, by the way, is a Boynton Beach police officer, a safe ship as Hurricane Dorian inches closer towards us, kissing her daddy goodbye. And we do have to remember, police officers, all of our personnel that are out there on the streets, making sure we continue to be safe. And this little girl, a beautiful bond between the daddy and his little boy. Back to you.
Really all in perspective when we see images like that, as we were talking earlier, our first responders, law enforcement out there keeping us safe, it reminds us that we gotta keep the warmth.
They've left their families to protect all of us. Don't forget that. Video now coming into us from the Bahamas, picking up where Ann left off as well. This is video sent to us by Facebook viewer Zania. Buildings damaged here in the Bahamas. You can see walls and roofs torn apart, and insulation really scattered everywhere. This is sort of indicative of what we've seen from all the video coming in. The storm surge there was awful, just awful in Abaco. And of course, and as the storm moves toward West End, it's going to get even worse. More video from Freeport.
And heard the Prime Minister earlier today saying how frustrated he was that he wanted people to evacuate, and many of them said, no, I want to stay in my home. So as sunlight comes over the Bahamas, the devastation is evident here. I think we're going to see more in the coming hours. Another video from Freeport here on the north side of Grand Bahama, still hours away from a possible direct hit, but you can see storm surge already covering the roads with water, and that was shot earlier. So by now, we'll get the track of the storm, find out exactly where it is for you.
And another video streamed live on Facebook shows major damage on Abaco Island. This is an area that I've seen the most video, the most destruction. In fact, I had a message that came in from Zinnia earlier. She sent several videos in to us, basically saying that Abaco was destroyed. And this is the storm surge. More viewers sending us more video of the storm surge here in the Bahamas. It's absolutely devastating. And in fact, earlier today, sustained winds of 185 miles an hour, gusts over 220 miles per hour, right in Abaco's, in the Bahamas, right here at Marsh Harbor, Abaco Island, taking the brunt of the storm right now, earlier today and currently.
Unbelievable, record-making storm moved to the Bahamas. We will see more at sunlight for sure. We're going to take a quick break. We are not going far. We're back in a moment with more Hurricane Dorian coverage.
This is WPTV Storm Team 5, tracking Dorian.
Hurricane Dorian battering the Bahamas as it crawls to a near complete stop. This powerful Category 5 storm slowly making its way in the direction of the Florida coastline. Good evening to you once again, and thanks for joining us for this special simulcast edition of the 10 o'clock minutes.
We are broadcasting on both WFLX and WPTV to keep you informed about Hurricane Dorian. Our Storm Team 5 working around the clock to get you through this storm and through this preparation stage. We'll start with Chief Meteorologist Steve Weaver. Steve.
Jay and Shannon, let's take a look at the very latest. This is an unbelievable hurricane heading toward South Florida. They're working through the Bahamas now. Just absolute devastation across the Out Island chain of the Bahamas, the northwestern Bahamas. The most powerful hurricane ever to make landfall in the northwestern Bahamas. And up next, Grand Bahama. It is going to travel right down the spine of Grand Bahama overnight in the darkness of night and eventually end up around West End tomorrow morning at sunrise. The wind's 185 miles an hour, and the outer band's already starting to be felt in South Florida. We're getting quick outer feeder bands working through with some heavy rainfall and some gusty winds. Let's do a cross section, show you just how powerful this is. The cloud tops and some of the thunderstorms, and there have been an unusual number of thunderstorms near the center of this. They're climbing 30, 40,000 feet up in the atmosphere, and the highest cloud tops, or the high cirrus clouds, of 50 and 60,000 feet. But these are an indication that radar's tracking some of the embedded storms and the stronger cells, the convection that is fueling this hurricane. And you can see pretty impressive cloud tops. And there's a look down the middle. The eye is wavering a little bit, but it's been between about 10 and 15 miles an hour wide, and it will continue to fluctuate a little bit as we go through what we call eye wall replacement cycles, where the eye wall essentially breaks down and a new one forms in its place. Unbelievable satellite loop. It's about 140, 150 miles away from South Florida. The hurricane force winds stretch out 45 miles from the center. The tropical storm force winds 140 miles out. If you've been watching this the last few days, you know that wind field has increased. It was around 100 late yesterday, and they're around 90 2 and 3 days ago. So that is expected. That entire wind field was forecast to expand at least a little bit. They are the outer feeder bands coming in, arriving as we get into Sunday night, and more on the way. The forecast track, here it is. It'll be updated around 11 o'clock, but it keeps it as a Category 5 through the Bahamas. There's the position at 2 p.m. on Monday. Then it slows down even more. The winds are at 185 now, moving slowly west at 5, but it'll get around 2 to 3 miles per hour. This distance right here, over 12 hours, is only about 25 miles at the most. So that's moving 2-3 miles an hour for over an extended period of time before it gets picked up by the trough and lifts north after that. See some weakness in the Bermuda High, and a trough that's coming down that will protect us from a landfall here. At least that's the current thinking. We are in the error zone across the Treasure Coast and parts of Palm Beach County. Any little shift toward the west would bring stronger winds and more damaging conditions across our area. Looks like the worst weather starts to arrive tomorrow with tropical storm force winds, sustained winds tomorrow afternoon, into the evening, and into Tuesday. I want to bring in James Wheeler because he's been tracking the radar, because we're getting those outer feeder bands. You've been watching each one of them, right, James?
Yeah, and there's still some out there right now that we're keeping an eye on, but obviously the main center of the storm is still offshore, just starting to move into Grand Bahama right now. But look at that, we had that one band move on through. Here's another one that will just barely miss us here, but there's still a few areas there that have some rain. You see one coming right out of Hobe Sound. It's going to move into Jupiter here momentarily. These are moving really, really fast, 30, 35 miles an hour or so. And they contain possibly 30, 35 mile per hour wind gusts mixing down. Some of the stronger ones up to 45 mile per hour wind gusts already, but it's real brief, just like a punch of wind and a punch of rain, and then it's done. Had one move through Vero Beach and down through Stewart. There's no one that was in Stewart. It's already down past Hobe Sound. Couldn't keep up with it there. And we see more on Live Viper 5 Max as it starts to move into Freeport there. Now, wind gusts and timing here. So these are gusts, not sustained winds. And you see them bumping up pretty quickly there, even going in Tuesday. The inland communities maybe 10 or 20 less. We're looking at 58-mile-per-hour wind gusts, and then finally by early Wednesday, things will be winding down and looking a lot better for us. Wellington, your wind gust graph here. Again, this is subject to change when we get new data in, but all in all, it's a little bit less, but not by much. Still get some wind gusts in the 50s as the storm gets big.
I'm Ann Sterling at the live desk. Tonight, Governor Ron DeSantis is getting the message out. Stay alert and listen to law enforcement. The governor, like so many of us, is monitoring each development of this storm. Resources are available statewide to help families potentially impacted by this storm. That includes thousands of National Guard members that are ready to assist.
Listen to their local authorities and have an evacuation plan ready if you are ordered to evacuate. Safety comes first, and you don't want to mess with the storm that is going at 185 miles per hour.
Earlier today, the governor suspended tolls on 9 highways as Hurricane Dorian approaches Florida. That includes the Turnpike, Alligator Alley, and also the Sawgrass.
And thank you. Thousands of people in our area are in evacuation zones and now under orders to leave.
In fact, several communities, in those communities, police are trying to make sure that everybody living in an evacuation zone knows that they should be leaving.
Center 5's Miranda Christian is in the South County with word on what they're doing there, South Palm Beach County after that. Miranda.
And we're in Briny Breezes right now. That's just east of Boynton Beach. And we saw people trying to evacuate today and get out of here and start heading west. Sergeant Hasbro is driving around this area in Briny Breezes. This area is known to flood during storms, and it's also king tide.
King tide and the high tide storm.
Pro says they need people to leave because during the storm, first responders won't be able to reach them if an emergency happens.
Just be careful. Be very careful. A lot of people let their guard down.
There weren't a lot of people left in Briny Breezes.
I thought it was going to go all north, so I canceled my hotel reservation yesterday, and then today when I heard it's not, I called up the company and said, I want my room back.
Arthur Bruce Jensen says he was the last one to leave his street, and he isn't taking any chances with a Cat 5 hurricane.
I'm a real brave guy until it comes something like that.
We're probably going to stay here until tomorrow morning, hopefully, if they don't stay completely.
Others are going to finish their storm preparation and leave before the weather starts on Monday.
Please finish your preparations to leave as soon as possible.
So if you are still planning to evacuate and want to do it tomorrow, both police and fire told me that you should do it as early as possible because they're going to start keeping an eye on the winds. And if those wind speeds start reaching around 50 miles an hour, they will close the bridges. They won't be able to get over to the mainland or back to the barrier islands. Reporting live in Boynton Beach, I'm Miranda Christian, WPTV, Channel 5. Miranda, thank you. And Palm Beach International Airport will cease all commercial airport operations beginning tomorrow. They're advising all travelers with plans in the coming days to go ahead and contact your airline. Officials also reminding all of us that PBIA is not a shelter, cannot be a shelter. So if you do have travel plans, don't expect to stay at the airport and sleep there until the airport reopens or resumes normal flight schedule. Also, the Fort Lauderdale Hollywood International Airport, that will be closing tomorrow at noon due to anticipated weather conditions.
In Indian River County, some people are starting to evacuate.
WPTV News Channel 5 Net will be live tonight in Vero Beach with more on that.
Yeah, right now here in Vero Beach, very breezy conditions. It's kind of affecting the Indian River a little bit. Out on the ocean, though, much rougher, as we're about to show you in a few seconds, though. Right now, residents east of US 1 here in Indian River County are being encouraged to take part in a voluntary evacuation. The bridges to the beach, like this one behind me, are still open. Mandatory evacuations, we're told, to these low-lying areas and also the structures described as substandard construction. That's expected to start tomorrow morning at 8 a.m. But as we found today along the coast just before sunset, the concern over the storm was already growing. The showers were spotty in Vero Beach on Sunday, but when it did rain, it came down hard.
We're a little frustrated about what we see out here and a little worried.
Jackie Schaefer's road along the beach was already flooded, a low point that already had water rising.
Today we just had rain. We just had like a 10-minute torrential downpour. My husband was coming to Fetters and he had to come in. And literally, then you couldn't even see the crown of the road. It was just like, and the water was running almost like a river.
Recent calls, Jackie says, to her HOA, the county, and the city haven't come up with any solutions to this water issue. Now, Hurricane Dorian has us seriously worried about what could happen under very heavy rain. With stores out of sandbags, Jackie is relying on more than 100 bags of gravel to protect her home as she plans to leave.
We lived in Orlando. I mean, I grew up in Orlando, and so we moved here a year ago, and I don't know which way to go.
And that is a real concern for a lot of people up here, which way to go after you do decide to evacuate. When we last spoke to Jackie, she was still deciding whether to go north, south, or even west. We're live in Vero Beach. Matt Sesney, WPTV, News Channel 5.
Thank you, and you can track the developments with Hurricane Dorian. Don't forget to download the WPTV app so you can get weather alerts sent right to your phone. Our app is free. And our coverage of Hurricane Dorian continues. We'll have information on evacuations that have already begun, as well as school closings.
And on a lighter note, we need one, don't we? As we brace for a rush or possible impact from Dorian, a lot of people, or some anyway, took some time to de-stress before the storm.
Welcome back. Tracking Hurricane Dorian. The wind still 185 miles an hour. The wind gusts over 200 miles an hour. And this storm is about 150 miles now off the coast of South Florida. As we go through each hour, it just becomes incredible, this satellite loop. When think about it, tomorrow morning around sunrise, We are going to see that eye in this area here, just off our coast. So it is 60 miles off our coast. That is the expectation for the closest approach to South Florida. We're getting some of the outer bands working now. The core of the hurricane, where the so let's say 150 to 160, 170, 180 mile an hour winds, those are concentrated very close to the core of the storm and the eye wall. Those that is just the first few miles. The hurricane's working straight out about 45 miles, and it's a little under, roughly 150 miles away from South Florida. So those damaging, very powerful winds are just near the core, but hurricane force winds, which are 74 above, are out about 45 miles. And the tropical storm force wind field is 140 at this point. Watching that closely, it's a key component here, because as the wind field expands, that puts us into more of the wind field of the tropical storm force winds on Monday and Tuesday. But the outer band's working through during the evening, off and on, with some gusty winds and some heavy downpours. It's making landfall in Grand Bahama on the eastern side of the island, and it is expected to continue as a Category 5 into Monday afternoon. There is 165 miles an hour, and then a gradual turn over about 12 hours from Monday afternoon into sunrise Tuesday, more likely, watching that turn closely, and then lifting up to the north after that. On its closest approach, we will see about 60 to 70 mile buffer here in Palm Beach County and the Treasure Coast. And the nastiest weather will start to arrive. The tropical storm force will sustain Monday afternoon and linger into Tuesday. James has been watching. We're all watching for this turn. James is going to talk about exactly why it's going to happen.
Yeah, I'll try to simplify things here, because I know we've used these terms before, but some people, it's not quite sure what it means. The Bermuda High, or we call it a big ridge, a trough, or we call it, well, basically low pressure is what it is. But what does that all mean? Well, in the atmosphere, it's kind of like on the ground. There's peaks and there's valleys, and let's simplify it a little bit here and just say, well, high pressure is just like a big mountain. That's what it is. The storm can't go up or through the mountain, it has to go around the mountain. And let's say the trough is like a gutter. What the storm wants to do is wants to roll into the gutter. Let's make the storm a little beach ball right here. So what's happening right now is, well, it's kind of flat ground, right? Everything's flat, so the ball can't roll in any direction, so it's going to steer. Don't forget, the mountain's moving and the gutter's moving too, so the ball is just going to kind of spin in place and kind of jog left and right and north and south. But eventually, this gutter's going to catch up, and the ball's going to want to roll right into that gutter. That's what's going to pick up the storm. Now, if the gutter gets here late, while the storm is meandering around, it gets a little bit closer to us. If it gets here a little bit early, it will stay farther offshore. It's just timing when this swing is, because everything's moving in the atmosphere. That's the tough part to pin down, but we're thinking that's going to happen while the storm is still offshore, and then it'll roll right into that gutter. That's why we have this crazy track right here. Because don't forget, the gutter just doesn't come in and scoop up the beach ball. It keeps going. So that's why the storm is going and then curving right off the coast, because that gutter keeps going off towards the east, and it's going to follow that. Then it gets picked up by the westerlies and shoots right out to sea, and that will be that with this storm.
James, thank you. I'm Ann Sterling at the live desk. Local schools are closing ahead of this storm. Schools already were going to be closed tomorrow for the holiday, but right now, that is extending. Here's the list for you. The Palm Beach County School District will be closed on Tuesday. So will Martin County Schools, as well as schools in the Indian River County School District. St. Lucie Public Schools will remain closed through Wednesday, and all Okeechobee County Public Schools will be closed until further notice. We have posted all this information. I know it's a lot that I'm throwing at you right now. All the information about school closures right on our website, WPTV.com. Jay, back to you.
Thank you very much. As we continue to track Dorian's path, we're also seeing how communities across the area are preparing.
That's right. Right now, we want to get to Jeff Rusak, who's live tonight in Boca Raton. Jeff?
The surf was up in Boca Raton today. A lot of people were out in the water surfing, but they know the dangers this storm could bring. South Beach Park in Boca Raton was the place to be for surfers on Sunday. With Dorian moving slowly, they took advantage of the storm's waves.
Summer's been pretty much flat for everybody here, so the moment there's some rideable waves and some decent safe conditions. You know, we're all out here trying to get our fill.
On shore, businesses and homes boarded up. Most have already taken the steps to prepare themselves and their property for the storm. Others waiting till the last minute.
I'm a little bit worried. And hoping this will do something.
Joseph Shalix and his son are filling up some sandbags, trying to make sure their home doesn't flood. Some of his own advice he's finally taken.
And it's up to being a realtor, so I'm putting on Facebook everything people should do, and then I'm thinking, I didn't do anything. So here I am, doing it.
And that surfer we spoke with, he says he's already taken steps to get his home ready. He, like everyone else, is just trying to stay positive about this storm.
Just kind of hoping it stays up short for everybody and see what waves we get after. And yeah, that's all you can really do.
I've talked to a couple of surfers. They said they would surprised if they're actually out surfing again tomorrow. But like a lot of people in Florida, they're going to be watching for this storm. Reporting live, local with home, Jeff Rusin, WPTV Channel 5.
Thank you, and remember, WPTV will stay on the air even if your power goes out. Take a look at your screen right now, grab a pen and paper and jot down these radio stations. These are our WPTV radio partners, and so should you need us, if power goes out, you can find us on radio. Listen to these stations from Palm Beach County all the way to Treasure Coast. We'll be there for you for the entire day. And you are watching WPTV News Channel 5. Our coverage of Hurricane Dorian does continue now. Words from one local sheriff about staying safe through the storm.
And our dedicated Storm Team 5 meteorologist covering Dorian right after the break on this special simulcast of the 10 o'clock news.
Welcome back, Palm Beach County Sheriff Rick Bradshaw, stop by our studio.
Thanks for the show and joining us this morning. Here's Message Dan.
Yeah, in fact, Jay, Sheriff Rick Bradshaw's message was stern and clear. There have been mandatory evacuations ordered for Zone A and also Zone B. Now, Zone A includes mobile homes and low-lying areas prone to flooding. Zone B generally includes the barrier islands and areas north and south of the Jupiter Inlet. Plus, he also had a message for anyone that just moved right here in Florida.
Don't think it's just a little bit of wind. You've seen some pictures of what's happening down there in the Bahamas. This is a big boy. This is strong. I mean, I've been through some hurricanes, nothing like this.
Sheriff is also assuring everyone that immigration status will not be checked for any person that does go to a shelter. All bags that you bring with you, though, could be searched. And here's a reminder, weapons are not allowed to shelter. Back to you.
Well, whether you are staying put and riding out the storm or evacuating, WPTV has you covered everywhere. Take your Roku, your Fire Stick, or your Apple TV devices with you, and make sure to download the WPTV app. We'll be streaming our live coverage, keeping you informed of the storm every step of the way. And our coverage of Hurricane Dorian continues, riding along with a local deputy as they urge Barrier Island residents to evacuate.
Also, boat owners battening down the hatches with feverish preparations at a local marina.
Mic check 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8 9 10. Mic check 1 2.
Welcome back. Let's bring you up to date on the very latest with Dorian, Category 5 hurricane, 150 miles off our coast and making landfall now in Grand Bahama, where we'll track right down the spine of Grand Bahama through Freeport, Lakaya, and eventually end up at West End tomorrow morning. It's moving slow now, about 5 miles an hour, and then forecast track coming up at 11 o'clock. Roughly 142 miles off our coast, and the incredible strength of this hurricane starting to be felt in Grand Bahama, the outer fringes being felt here with those outer feeder bands working in already. It's tapping into some very warm water through the Bahamas, and hopefully we'll loosen a little bit with the land interaction, but judging from the last few frames, it is certainly impressive on the radar loop. This is the radar. You can see, I'll go back here a frame, you can see the bands working in. We've already had some feeder bands, gusty winds. Typically what happens is we get a band go through, some winds of 25, 35 miles an hour, some torrential downpours, and then it all tapers off. You get a break for about a half an hour, and then a second band goes in. As it's a layer after layer all the way into the core of the hurricane. Luckily, we are not expecting to get into that area of this storm with the forecast track taking it essentially to West End on Monday afternoon, and then just really a painfully slow turn toward the northwest Monday night and Tuesday. Even by Tuesday noon, We're still looking for a forward motion here. It is expected to eventually pick up forward speed, but this is a 12-hour difference here, and it only moves about less than 25 miles. That is this about 2 miles an hour. It's a very slow forward motion at that point. So we'll watch it closely, and then eventually it moves up the East Coast after that. There's a closer look. So its closest approach to Palm Beach County will be Monday afternoon and evening, and on the Treasure Coast, it'll be more Monday night and Tuesday. That's where we get into just razor thin margin of error here. Any track closer to the coast, and we're dealing with the same hurricane force. That's why hurricane warning is affecting the Treasure Coast and a hurricane watch for Palm Beach County. The tropical storm force is showing up, that wind field showing up in yellow here. That arrives Monday afternoon, early in the day, and then spreads up into the Treasure Coast Monday night and Tuesday, and into Tuesday. There's Tuesday 8 a.m. Very, very close, and in fact, I'll put it in motion here. You can see that those 50 and 60 mile an hour winds just clip the Treasure Coast around Hutchinson Island from Fort Pierce into Vero and Sebastian. And the radar is still tracking those showers and those gusty winds coming in right now. Here's a cross section of the hurricane. One of the great features of the live radar. You can see some of these tops and some of the convection topping 20, 30,000 feet. There's still lots of energy here for this to tap into. And you can also see about a 10-mile wide eye at this point working across the Bahamas. So it is an impressive storm and not expected to weaken much in the next 48 hours. James is here. We've been talking about the wave heights, a big factor in this storm.
Yeah, it stayed small out there today. You saw that story earlier. Boca, not that big a wave. That's going to change very, very quickly. The Treasure Coast already had the main longer period swell start to show up through the day today. And look at what happens as we go through time here. This little purplish black dot in the middle, that's 20 to even 35-foot seas on the northern quadrant of the storm as it clears the Bahamas. All of this will push all the water down to the south. And on top of that, we have that king high tide that shows up right as this surge comes to at around midnight. That's one high tide cycle. And then noon the next day, the next high tide cycle with still these enormous, massive waves coming on in. On top of that, we have all the wind blowing on there, and that's going to cause a big surge even all the way down through Palm Beach County. Finally, by Wednesday, we'll start to taper off on the wave heights, and by the end of the day, things get back to normal.
All right, James, thank you very much. Well, Martin County Sheriff's deputies spent the afternoon going door to door in a mandatory evacuation zone to check on family.
News Channel 5's Alana Cohen joined deputies on a ride-along as they knocked on doors this evening. She's live at the Sheriff's Office with the very latest on that. Alana?
Well, we switched locations. We are now at one of the shelters here in Palm City where people are coming to amid those mandatory evacuations. Those were issued at 1 p.m. today for barrier islands, low-lying areas, and people living in manufactured homes. Deputies are urging those people to come to shelters like this one at Hidden Oaks Middle School as Dorian turns closer to the Florida coast. Deputy Reese-Peter is making sure no one gets left behind.
We're urging people to find a different location.
As Hurricane Dorian bears down on Florida, Martin County issued mandatory evacuation Sunday afternoon. Deputies immediately got to work knocking on doors in vulnerable areas to make sure people know the dangers.
This one's got me awake.
Bob Woods is on the fence about leaving, but his friends are getting out of the way.
5 o'clock in the morning, we'll know whether it's going to make its turn. I'll stay at times.
Trying to do all the right things and help people find solutions to keep them safe.
Others are leaving first thing Monday.
My friends and relatives, that's an important thing, is to let them know that I'm doing what I'm supposed to be doing.
But this woman says she's going to stay.
I live through one, I guess I'll live through another.
There's 180 mile an hour winds, and there's flooded roads and trees down and power poles down. If you dial 911, you might not be able to get to you.
Sheriff's deputies say they can't physically force people to leave, but they're hoping people take the storm seriously enough.
It's nerve-wracking for us because we want to do the best job that we can, and we're here to protect people.
So far, 160 people have checked into this shelter here at Hidden Oaks Middle School. They have a capacity for 800, but they are not turning people away. There's plenty of room, and there's 3 total shelters in Martin County. So far, 750 have checked into those. We have the details posted on our website, WPTV.com, and also told that Martin County Sheriff's deputies are going to be going door to door tomorrow as well in those mandatory evacuation areas. Reporting live in Palm City, Alana Quillen, WPTV News Channel 5.
I'm Ann Sterling at the live desk. Let's get to the latest on the evacuations. Alana was just talking about what is happening in Martin County. So again, in Martin County, we're talking about Zone A and Zone B. So what is Zone A and what is Zone B? Let's break this down for you, because in Martin County, if you live in those areas, that's where you need to evacuate. Palm Beach County, we talked about that just about 10 minutes ago, Zone A and Zone B as well. So let's talk about St. Lucie County now, because if you're in St. Lucie County, there are mandatory evacuations ordered for North and South Hudson Island. That is along the low-lying coastal areas and also mobile homes. Indian River County officials are encouraging a voluntary evacuation from the barrier islands and also east of US 1 in low-lying areas and in mobile homes. Mandatory evacuations for those areas will be issued tomorrow at 8 o'clock in the morning. Of course, we will keep you posted. Let's move to Okeechobee County. A voluntary evacuation order was issued for people living in mobile homes, low-lying areas, and also areas prone to flooding. For a complete list of evacuation zones and shelters and what is Zone A and what is Zone B, head to our website, WPTV.com.
Thank you. It really is helpful when you go there. We have it really well laid out. Always have in the past, but especially this year.
It's all personalized this year for you.
Absolutely. Turning now to Fort Pierce, where boat owners are not taking any chances when it comes to Hurricane Dorian.
WPTV News Channel 5's Jason Grinauer is working this story for us tonight.
The downpours have come and gone throughout the night here in Fort Pierce. The winds are picking up and the local businesses are shutting down. But despite the warnings and the mandatory evacuations, there are still some here along the Treasure Coast that plan on tying down, riding this one out.
You can see most of the slips are empty.
At Causeway Cove Marina, most of the boats are long gone.
We were unable to haul out, and we're just going to ride it out. We've made it through a couple of hurricanes in the past, but
none like Dorian.
It's no joke, you know. I mean, I actually have goosebumps as we speak.
Because Captain Kenny will be spending the storm aboard his 52-foot classic.
So she's 1953, and we love her as much as we can.
Tied down with 18 lines and more knots than he can count.
We got as many fenders as we can, bumpers up and down. You know, everything's doubled, everything's tripled.
As ready as he can be.
It may not be pretty right now. It kind of looks like the hurricane plan itself with a bunch of spaghetti, but you can't have too many lines on these boats right here, right now.
As law enforcement heeds caution.
This storm is no joke, and even though there's this expected turn that we think it's going to make, it may not make that turn. Anything's possible with the storm. And if it doesn't make that turn, things are going to get serious very, very quickly.
Boy, we're just hoping this storm turns north. You know, we're hoping for the best case scenario, but we'll be here and we'll ride it out and we'll give it 110%. We'll do the best we can.
And of course, police say they want people to follow those mandatory evacuation orders for the barrier islands, low-lying areas, and mobile home parks here in Fort Pierce, adding that they are planning on closing the bridges once wind speeds hit or exceed 45 miles per hour. Reporting tonight in Fort Pierce, I'm Jason Grinauer, WPTV News Channel 5.
Our hurricane coverage, Hurricane Dorian continues. Incredible video from the Bahamas as Hurricane Dorian churns through.
And our Storm Team 5 meteorologists hard at work right now. They are tracking Dorian. We'll go to them in moments.
I'm Ann Sterling at the live desk with a video that was just posted on our Facebook page about 25 minutes ago. This video right here, sent to us by Dania on Facebook. You can see it's a building of some sort. I think it's an apartment building because I see a mattress somewhere in there. There's a kitchen we just passed by, and that's a person that lives somewhere nearby. But you can see how much damage and destruction is here in this building right here. That looks like a hallway. And then if it pans around, you can see, well, let's move to our next video. This is the sea level rising, as you can see. Another video from Freeport on the northwest side of Grand Bahama. And you can see the storm surge already covering the roads with water. This video obviously shot a couple of hours or at least before the storm, but definitely this afternoon, this video was actually shot and sent to us via Facebook just a little while ago. Let's move on to our next video here, streamed live on Facebook. It shows major damage on Abaco Island. You can see the damage here, the storm surge. I don't know if this is a car here. I can't make out exactly what it is, but you can see how much water, not only the rain and the sea level that is rising, but how much water has just covered the entire area, not only roads, but the entire island too. We'll keep you posted on any of the videos.
It shows major damage on Abaco Island. You can see the damage here, the storm surge. I don't know
right now the latest on what's not only happening there in the Bahamas, but what's moving closer here to Florida.
Yes, and it's moving away from those islands, but in toward Grand Bahama now, and starting to see some of the bands working into South Florida. It is expected to continue and intensify overnight and into Monday. We're going to talk about the latest forecast track coming up.
If I want better rates, my deposits take up to 5 days to reach India. But if I want fast transfers,
And Sheriff Snyder said today during a news conference that at this point there are no
Welcome back. Anxiously awaiting the 11 p.m. advisory and the new forecast track. It should be out in the next 15 minutes. And we are watching a hurricane with 185-mile-an-hour winds. We're down on the Bahamas. The video and photos coming, and the reports coming out of Abaco. The beautiful island chain is just incredible. The devastation from this Category 5 hurricane. How about 150 miles off the coast of South Florida and moving toward the west, 5 miles an hour. So it has slowed its forward speed. It still packs a punch with the hurricane force winds out 45 miles from the center, tropical storm force winds out 140. So the wind field is expanded. and is potentially expanding even more on Monday and Tuesday. Now the radar, because it's in our view, you can see the outer bands sliding in across the Treasure Coast and then quickly down through Palm Beach County. Each one of these cells moving very quickly, 30, 40 miles an hour. The forward speed of the hurricane, though, is limiting the stronger feeder bands from making their way in until late overnight. And it looks like sustained tropical winds won't arrive until around the noon hour tomorrow. As far as the current track, we have 185 mile an hour winds moving west at 5 and a turn expected Monday, late in the day, Monday night into Tuesday morning. It's a very, very slow turn, very slow track. It's nearly stalled at this point before it starts to lift north and push up the East Coast, paralleling the East Coast on Wednesday and Thursday. But here's a close-up look, and you can see at its closest approach, it's about 60 to 70 miles off Palm Beach County and then eventually on the Treasure Coast, close enough that if there is any drift to the west, it brings in stronger winds for South Florida. But we are expecting that the tropical storm force wind showing up in yellow arrive tomorrow afternoon into tomorrow evening. These are the sustained winds, and they continue to work through during Tuesday and starting to taper off by Tuesday night. James.
All right, we're tracking some rain already moving into the area. The outer bands are starting to move on in. We had a couple pretty gusty ones move on through. 45 mile per hour wind gusts was one of them as it moved through from Jupiter Farms down to the south. We're just slowing down a little bit right now with the showers, mainly offshore with those couple of squalls there. Had one just moved through Jupiter and Vero Beach. You have one maybe just south of Sebastian, Wabasso. You get a quick little shower moving on through, and that one that quickly moved through Sailfish Point there is now gone. Temperatures, it's real muggy and tropical feeling out there, that's for sure. So let's go hour by hour here on Vipercast, and you see through the night we get some of these broken bands that move on through. Another stronger one moves on through around mid-morning tomorrow, and I think that's when the wind really starts to pick up, the possibly even tropical storm force here, especially with the gusts and any of these feeder bands that move on through. And as we get into tomorrow night, the hurricane's right there, so we keep getting kind of feeder band after band move on through, and we're going to see that all the way through Tuesday. It's not going to taper off until Wednesday morning.
James, thank you.
Palm Beach is like a lot of other cities and towns right here in our area.
That's right, it's quiet while they are waiting for the storm to arrive. WPTV News Channel 5's Jillian Io shows us the scene on the island.
It's a ghost town right now on Worth Avenue. Plywood covers windows and sandbags line storefronts.
I talked to my mom, and you know, like, flights are expensive, so they were like, if you can find a place that you think you're going to be safe, just try to do that. And so, yeah.
This Palm Beach Atlantic student from Alabama spent his Sunday at the beach with friends.
I went this morning, like, got some canned foods, nothing frozen, all that stuff. Tried to do some meal prepping, and got some sandbags for our front door, but that's just about it.
The town of Palm Beach issued mandatory evacuations that one Sunday. While some residents decided to leave town, other people from neighboring cities decided to venture over to the island in hopes of catching some waves.
We kind of made it into a learning opportunity for them as opposed to something that they should be scared of.
This Mama 4 is letting her kids burn off energy and to be stuck inside for the next several days.
Read books to them about hurricanes and did a little experiment in a bottle to show them pretty much what happens with the water when a hurricane happens.
And back here live on Worth Avenue, I want to show you there are still some last minute preparations taking place. This man here behind me showing up to the Michael Kors store in the last 30 minutes to board the windows there. Now, it is unclear exactly when mandatory evacuations will be lifted here on Palm Beach and if they plan to have any type of curfew in the coming days. Live right now in Palm Beach, Jillian Idle, WPTV News Channel 5.
A lot of questions about when those curfews would begin and all of that to come for sure as we move through this together. Well, for a lot of people, this could be the last night out before the storm visits us.
WPTV News Channel 5's Wanda Moore joins us from Stewart and the activity happening up there. Wanda.
Businesses and restaurants here in downtown Stewart are all ready, boarded up, and people are trying to enjoy one last night out. Downtown Stewart was busy despite most restaurants and businesses being boarded up. The shutters don't necessarily mean they're closed.
We are open for dinner tonight. We're going to be open all day tomorrow.
Fritz Bistro and Cafe is putting up shutters as people were eating their dinner.
Originally, we were going to close today after 2 o'clock and close tomorrow.
But then Dorian slowed down even further.
It's been difficult.
Fritz wants to stay open as long as possible.
Most of the businesses here in Stewart are going to be closed. And we'd like to be the one that stays open and helps out the community a little. Because everyone gets tired of being in.
Escaping that cabin fever feeling for a few more hours.
I think we're just walking along the water, kind of seeing what it looks like before we head back to kind of get sheltered in for the next few days. But getting a last glimpse of the water before we're stuck away for 2 or 3 days.
How much impact will the Treasure Coast see from Dorian? That's the question everyone is asking. For those who have been in the area for a while, Dorian brings back bad memories of previous storms.
Well, we went through Hurricane Andrew in '92, so we lost everything during that storm. And because we went through Andrew, we tried to reach out to so many people. They went, don't take this for granted. Don't think it's going to change.
And Sheriff Snyder said at this point there are no plans for a curfew just yet. Of course, that could change, so keep an eye on that. Certainly here, all eyes are on Dorian as this catastrophic storm is closer. Back to you.
I want to thank you, and all eyes will be on the 11 p.m. forecast track set to come out in a matter of minutes from the National Hurricane Center. When we get it, we'll bring it to you right now. Quick break.
All right, we are still awaiting the new advisory coming in right now. If we can go to the Max 1 computer, that would help out a lot. There you go. So we're waiting for it. This is 10 o'clock position there with the 8 o'clock advisory, and you see maximum winds 85 miles per hour. So just waiting for that to come in. We're waiting for the last second here. So Chief Meteorologist Steve Weigel will have that latest advisory, latest analysis coming up in a few minutes.
Welcome to this special 1-hour edition of News Channel 5.
Tracking, of course, powerful Hurricane Dorian. Storm Team 5 coverage, Chief Meteorologist Steve Wiggle here with the new 11 p.m. track. Steve.
It just came in, Michael and Kelly, and the storm has changed a little bit. We still have a powerful Category 5 hurricane. The outer feeder bands working in across South Florida, gusty winds, and some heavy rainfall, making landfall in Grand Bahama on the eastern side of the island, and it will track right down the spine of Grand Bahama, ending off near West End tomorrow morning. It's slow moving. It's only moving about 5 miles an hour toward the west, and it's roughly 130 miles off the Florida coastline. So it is getting closer, and you can see that some of the bulk of this storm is just off our coast, very close to the coastline. The hurricane force winds stretch out 45 miles from the center. Tropical storm force winds out 140, so they're continuing to expand, and the radar coming out of our area showing that just the outer band brushing the coastline, but the heavy part of this storm, the strongest winds still over the Bahamas at this point. Here's the new forecast track, so it's moving west at 6, so it's picked up about a mile an hour. Winds at 180, so that's dropped a little bit. That's in response to the pressure, which also filled in a little bit during the day. It was down to 910 millibars. It bumped up to 915, and now it sits at 914. If the pressure rises, we usually see the wind start to decrease a little bit, and the opposite happens, which we've seen the last couple of days with this powerful hurricane too. So there's Monday, 8 a.m., moving just to the north of the Bahamas. We'll jog back toward the west and ending up just north of West End. This is a very similar track to what we saw at 5 o'clock. So there's Monday, 8 p.m. Sitting. This is roughly its closest approach to Palm Beach County, and then it makes that turn. And this is a painfully slow turn because this is a 12-hour period where it really doesn't move very much. It is likely moving at about 3 to 4 miles an hour overnight and into Tuesday morning. But that turn is expected to happen overnight Monday, and then eventually up the coastline after that is a Category 4. And that similar track is what we saw at 5 o'clock, just kind of paralleling the coast all the way up into the Carolinas. That's a big map. You want to see the closer view. Here it is. Treasure Coast still in the error cone, and a little bit less of Palm Beach County, not much, by a few miles. It's irrelevant either way because if the storm tracks a little closer to west and closer to us, we would feel the hurricane and tropical storm force winds out of this. So don't concentrate too much on the don't concentrate on the downline track. We could certainly see, because it slows down so much, a track a little farther west, and it really won't take much. Even a shift of 20, 25 miles. Let's say the storm makes it to West End and it decides it's going to wait a few more hours before it makes that turn. It would end up in this area first and then make the turn. That pushes the hurricane and the tropical storm force winds closer to us and a little stronger. But this is going to be a long, just a watch through really tomorrow night and into Tuesday morning. And then it starts to take off up the coastline after that during the day Tuesday. So we have about 36 hours here where we're just going to watch this. Now, here's the wind field, and it has expanded to tropical storm force winds spreading across the area late morning and into the afternoon. These are sustained winds. And then moving up into the Treasure Coast, this is a change. Stronger winds of 50, 60, approaching 70 miles an hour, right along the northeastern Palm Beach County line, and then pushing even a little bit farther inland across the Treasure Coast. Why is it doing that? Because the wind field is expanding. So a very dangerous ocean and beach conditions on the way. And with this storm sitting over West End for about 12 hours, the wave heights are going to be astronomical. There's a look at some of the feeder bands as they push in off the coastline. We're also 3D into this storm, watching some of the higher clouds of convection, and it's about 30 to 40,000 feet up. Lots of lightning with this hurricane, which is unusual, to say the least. Near the center, a couple dozen lightning strikes every few minutes as it moves through, and it's about 10 miles wide at this point too. So a hurricane watch in effect for Palm Beach County. We have a hurricane warning for the Treasure Coast right now. I want to toss it over to James to talk more about those wave heights. Beach erosion is going to be significant. I think that's pretty much guaranteed, James.
Yeah, just massive waves out there expected, and not just a quick shot of them. This is going to be a prolonged event here. Seas 20 to even 35 feet offshore. Breakers will be at over 10 feet, more than 10 feet, and the surge of swell and waves all come at the time of high tide, and that's a king high tide at the just before midnight hour tomorrow night, and then again at the next high tide cycle, which is noon time on we're looking at Tuesday afternoon, noonish time. So those two high tides will be extremely high. And then as we finally get into Wednesday, things start to quiet down. The waves come down quite a bit here, and then we'll relax everything, and even a southwest wind will help blow out some of the water that's maybe piling up. I know a lot of surfer friends of mine are saying they want to go out surf. This just isn't the time for that. The storm's way too close. We like to surf when the storms are far away and everything's quiet near shore. This one just got too close, so maybe get the next one here. And it doesn't look like it's going to produce much after it leaves, too. Storm surge, a lot of people asking about that. We could see 2 to 4 feet in Palm Beach County, a little bit less down in Boca, but all that wind and water is just going to pile up along the coast. And it's not just along the coast, the intracoastal waters, up rivers and tributaries and all that, too. You see that even in Port St. Lucie, you could see some surge there. The Treasure Coast, we're talking 6 feet plus in some areas. So what is storm surge? Well, the normal sea levels here, a surge is going to come up when that wind and wave action just kind of pile the water up. So we go from the normal sea level, we go up to 3 feet, up to 6 feet, which is what we may see. And of course, any houses or any structures that are right near the coastline will go way up for that too. And if we go up one more notch, which we're not expecting 12 feet, but it gets pretty high, I mean, 12 feet, that's higher than your ceiling in most houses there if you're right along the coast. So it's the wind and all that wave action pushing it in. I do think we'll see some breaches in some of the barrier islands and the dunes where the waves and water are going to wash completely over the entire island and make new inlets, cut new inlets, possibly on Hutchinson Island and even Palm Beach.
James, Steve, thank you very much. Tonight we're getting a better picture, and it is a sobering one to say the least, of the destruction Hurricane Dorian was wrought in the Bahamas. Video from Marsh Harbor.
Let's go to News Channel 5's Ann Sterling to take us through some of the video coming into the newsroom. Ann.
This video that we did post on our Facebook page, so take a look at this video here. This is an apartment complex. This was sent in to us by a viewer, Zany on Facebook. This, again, a building appears to be an apartment complex because not only do you see the kitchen right there, there is a mattress once you go down this hallway. It appears to be a resident that lives in the area. Look at the damage of the roof right there. You can't miss that. There's debris everywhere as they shoot down the hallway there, and you can see just trying to grab whatever they can to evacuate this area. There's the mattress that we saw earlier. That's why I believe this is an apartment complex and not an office building of sorts. Let's move on to our next one. It's a video from Freeport. This is on the northwest side of Grand Bahama. This video was shot during the day. It appears, as you can see, you just heard James talk about the storm surge, the sea level. This is what it looks like as people are driving along the road here. The trees completely covered in water there. Another video streamed live on Facebook shows major damage on Abaco Island. This video right here, again, the storm surge. I don't know if these are cars down here, but if you continue to watch this video, I think it's about 30 seconds long. There are houses down there, so this has got to be a road right here because there's structures down up there at the top of the screen, as you can see. This storm surge, the water, the sea level, all the rain, that is water that is just covering that road right there. We will continue to bring you more videos. This comes into our newsroom right here, the buildings, the destruction. So continue to watch some of it. We'll bring it to you as soon as we get in.
All right, Ann, thanks. We learned tonight Fort Lauderdale Hollywood International Airport will shut down at noon on Monday, tomorrow. Also, Palm Beach International will cease all commercial airport operations beginning tomorrow as well. They advise all travelers with plans in the coming days to contact your airline. Officials are also reminding all of us that TPIA is not a shelter. So if you had travel plans and they got canceled, please do not expect to sleep at the airport.
And please be sure to stay with our Storm Team 5 meteorologists as they track Tropical Storm Dorian and its impact. We'll have coverage online, WPTV.com, on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram.
Mandatory evacuations of low-lying areas set to begin in the morning tonight. Why concern is growing. Mandatory evacuations ordered in parts of Palm Beach County. Those are for zones A and B. Zone A includes mobile homes, substandard housing, low-lying areas that are prone to flooding. Zone B generally includes the barrier islands, areas north and south of the Jupiter Inlet, and other surge vulnerable areas south along the intercoastal down the Broward County line.
If you choose not to evacuate to a shelter, please evacuate miles, not hundreds of miles. We encourage you to stay within the county to shelter in place.
There are now 9 general population shelters open in Palm Beach County. Also a special needs shelter at the South Florida Fairgrounds and a pet-friendly shelter at West Boynton Park and Rec Center. You can find all of that information about evacuation zones and shelters on WPTV. vero.com.
In Indian River County, some people are underway with their evacuation.
That's right. News Channel 5's Matt Chesney live in Vero Beach tonight. Matt?
Kelly, Michael, we've had very breezy conditions in Vero Beach tonight. In fact, it's been like this since we arrived here just a few hours ago. We had a moderately heavy rainstorm that started just about 10 minutes ago. Residents here in Indian River County, east of US 1, are being encouraged for a voluntary evacuation tonight. In fact, the bridges to the barrier island and the beaches are still open tonight. Mandatory evacuations, we're told here, are expected to start tomorrow morning at 8 a.m. But once we arrived up here in Vero Beach, we could tell right away along the coast, concerned about the storm as well. The showers were spotty in Vero Beach on Sunday, but when it did rain, it came down hard.
We're a little frustrated about what we see out
here. Don't worry, Jackie Schaefer's road along the beach was already flooding, a low point that already had water rising.
Today we just had rain. We just had like a 10-minute torrential downpour. My husband was putting shutters and he had to come in. And literally, you couldn't even see the ground of the road. It was just like this, and the water was running almost like a river.
Recent calls, Jackie says, to her HOA, the county, and the city haven't come up with any solutions to this water issue. Now, Hurricane Dorian has her seriously worried about what could happen under very heavy rain. With stores out of sandbags, Jackie is relying on more than 100 bags of gravel to protect her home. She plans to leave.
We lived in Orlando, and I grew up in Orlando, and so we moved here a year ago, and I don't know which way to go.
Yeah, that is really a tough question for a lot of people out here tonight. Which way to go once you decide to evacuate? We left Jackie, she was loading up the car, she was still undecided whether to go north or south.
Dorian has been moving west for several days, but is expected to turn northwest as it moves right up against our coast. I'll have the latest forecast track. We'll take a look at what it means for us here in South Florida as far as the weather the next few days coming up.
Martin County Sheriff's deputies spent the afternoon going door to door.
They were in a mandatory evacuation zone and they were checking on families.
WPTV News Channel 5, Alana Quillen joined deputies in a ride as they knocked on doors this evening. She's live at an emergency shelter with the latest reports. Alana.
Well, Hidden Oaks Middle School here, one of the emergency shelters across Martin County. And just in the last hour or so, lights out as people go to sleep for the night. The workers here, they will be here throughout the night as people come in. Even if they need to come in at 3 in the morning, they will be here. And that's exactly what deputies are urging people to do in these mandatory evacuation areas as Hurricane Dorian turns closer to Florida.
Sheriff's Office.
Deputy Reese Heater is making sure no one gets left behind.
Very clear. We're urging people to find a different location.
As Hurricane Dorian bears down on Florida. Martin County issued mandatory evacuation Sunday afternoon. Deputies immediately got to work knocking on doors in vulnerable areas to make sure people know the dangers.
This one's got me a week.
Bob Woods is on the fence about leaving, but his friends are getting out of the way.
5 o'clock in the morning, we'll know whether it's going to make its turn. I'll stay if it turns.
Trying to do all the right things and help people find solutions.
Others are leaving first thing Monday.
My friends and relatives, that's an important thing, is to let them know that I'm doing what I'm supposed to be doing.
But this woman says she's going to stay.
I live to one, I guess I'll live to do another. There's 180-mile-an-hour winds, there's flooded roads and trees down and power poles down. If you dial 911, you might not be able to get to you.
Sheriff's deputies say they can't physically force people to leave, but they're hoping people take the storm seriously enough.
It's nerve-wracking for us, because we want to do the best job that we can, and we're here to protect people.
Now, so far, 160 people and counting have checked into this shelter. They have a capacity for 800, but they will not turn people away. And there are several shelters across Martin County. We have those details posted on our website, WPTV.com. I'm also told that Martin County deputies will be out again tomorrow knocking on doors in those mandatory evacuation zones. Reporting live in Palm City, Alana Quillen, WPTV News Channel 5.
All right, we have some adjustments at the 11 p.m. advisory and new forecast track for Dorian. It is about 130 miles off our coast, and it is moving west at 6 miles an hour. So it bumped up the forward speed just a little, and it is bearing down Grand Bahama now. This island will be devastated by this hurricane. We've seen the videos coming out from the coast. This could be worse, believe it or not, because it is going to be in the eye wall for an extended period of time, and the storm will either stall or move drift for about 12 hours on the western side of the island. It will just sit there, essentially, moving maybe 3 or 4 miles an hour as it slowly lifts north. This is catastrophic to Grand Bahama. There's the distance right now, 130 miles an hour, and the storm is moving, of course, closer to Freeport, North High, and then eventually west. And the outer feeder bands working into our area slowly. They were more aggressive earlier. Those gusty winds and some heavy downpours. And there is a slight tornado threat. We had a couple of tornado warnings earlier. Typically, you don't get a lot of tornado activity on the western side, or what we call the left side of the track. But we'll keep an eye out for it. Those warnings were back on the west coast, but there is at least somewhat of a threat. As far as the track, 165-mile-an-hour winds, that is tomorrow morning, 8 a.m., and then it slows down even more. That is into tomorrow night, late afternoon and into the evening. It also weakens to a Category 4, and then it makes this turn. Now, it looks like a quick turn, but it's not. This is going to be a 12-hour time period where it just slowly pushes to the north, and then eventually it picks up forward speed again. About a 30-mile difference here. Well, that might be even generous, 25 to 30-mile difference. And then you get into a typical forward speed with a hurricane after that. So it is going to be wait to see all Monday night and into Tuesday morning. Here's a close-up look at exactly the scenario on the forecast track. Now, we still have Treasure Coast in the Aircone and a little bit of Palm Beach County, but don't concentrate on that. Just watch for any shifts in the direction of this. And should it stall, if it just drifts a few miles to the west, it could have a bigger impact on our weather. The wind field is also expanding in this at the same time. So the arrival of tropical storm force wind sustained is now about 6 to 7 in the morning and spreads across the area during the morning and early afternoon. There's 10 p.m. across most of Palm Beach County. And the stronger winds, these are 55, 65 mile an hour winds, sustained winds, are right at the coast around Jupiter. They just brush along the coast from Jupiter Island, Hutchinson Island, and they're even working around Fort Pierce, Port St. Lucie, and Stewart. And those are winds that will do some damage, power outages, and perhaps some trees down. And with that forecast, we're also looking at a hurricane watch for Palm Beach County, a hurricane warning for the Treasure Coast and just offshore Palm Beach County, tropical storm warning for Palm Beach County, and the tropical storm watch for the interior areas with a little less wind. Storm surge warning, the entire viewing area, that includes Palm Beach County, 2 to 4 feet above normal levels, 4 to 7 on the Treasure Coast. And high tide time is around noon, roughly, and around midnight. And the forecast model tracks you can see are almost identical to what they were earlier, perhaps a little bit of a shift in some, but not too much. And obviously we'll watch that through the overnight. The next big model run comes in around 2 to 3 in the morning. Here's the probability of power outages in our area. These numbers have climbed because the wind field has expanded. We're looking at a medium to high threat for power outages across Palm Beach County and the Treasure Coast. And I suspect these numbers will climb even more as the storm works in. The probability of tropical storm force winds again here about 100%. And there's a hurricane force wind probability. It is a cumulative, but it shows almost 50% in some spots. So watch when 48 hours out morning. And just if you haven't done so already, you have a small window where you might be able to do some last minute planning tomorrow, but winds are picking up early in the day and continuing to strengthen on Monday. James.
Yeah, so let's go city by city here. A lot of people ask, well, what's my city going to see wind-wise? Now, these are wind gusts, but you should always prepare for the gusts. So it's going to be the higher end of the scale here. In Boca Raton, waking up, you could have some gusts already into the 40s here as we go through Monday. They get up Monday night, Tuesday morning, possibly seeing gusts into the mid-50s. Well above tropical storm force range there. And then finally, as we get late Tuesday, focus since you're farther south, start pulling away, you're going to see things slack off a little bit quicker. What about West Palm Beach? West Palm Beach, we're looking at ramping up rather quickly here through the day as we get to tomorrow night and early Tuesday, maxing out into the mid-60s for wind gusts possible there. And some of those squalls moving through, and then we'll tone it down as we get late in the day on Tuesday. Wellington, inland communities, you're still going to see tropical storm force wind gusts out there. You're under a tropical storm watch, which means conditions are possible there to see those winds, and you'll see it slowly building through the day, and then it'll quickly taper off there late on Tuesday. Port St. Lucie, a little bit higher there because it's going to get a little bit closer to you up on the Treasure Coast, but mid-60s there. We're looking at a really high there. We could even see some 70-plus mile-per-hour wind gusts heading up into Vero Beach or Sebastian, possibly gusting up the hurricane force there. And we'll keep you posted on all the new data coming in because this will change and tweak here and there in the upcoming day.
James, Steve, thank you. Whether you are riding out the storm in your home or you're evacuating, WPTV has you covered everywhere. Take your Roku, Fire Stick, or Apple TV devices with you, and make sure you download the WPTV app. Streaming our live coverage, including the forms of the storm every step of the way.
Turning now to Fort Pierce, where boat owners are not taking any chances when it comes to Hurricane Dorian.
WPTV News Channel 5's Jason Grunauer is working this story tonight.
The downpours have come and gone throughout the night here in Fort Pierce. The winds are picking up and the local businesses are shutting down. But despite the warnings and the mandatory evacuations, there are still some here along the Treasure Coast that plan on tying down, riding this one out.
You can see most of the slips are empty.
At Causeway Cove Marina, most of the boats are long gone.
We were unable to haul out, and we're just going to ride it out. We've made it through a couple of hurricanes in the past, but
none like Dorian.
It's no joke, you know. I mean, I actually have goosebumps as we speak.
Because Captain Kenny will be spending the storm aboard his 52-foot Classic.
So she's 1953. And we love her as much as we can.
Tied down with 18 lines and more knots than you can count.
We got as many fenders as we can. Bumpers up and down. You know, everything's doubled, everything's tripled.
As ready as he can be.
It may not be pretty right now. It kind of looks like the hurricane plan itself with a bunch of spaghetti, but you can't have too many lines on these boats right here, right now.
As law enforcement heeds caution.
This storm is no joke, and even though there's this expected turn that we think it's going to make, it may not make that turn. Anything's possible with the storm. And if it doesn't make that turn, then things are going to get serious very, very quickly.
Boy, we're just hoping this storm turns north. You know, we're hoping for the best case scenario, but we'll be here and we'll ride it out. We'll give it 110%. We'll do the best we can.
And of course, police say they want people to follow those mandatory evacuation orders to barrier islands, low-lying areas, and mobile home parks here in Fort Pierce, adding that they are planning on closing the bridges once wind speeds hit or exceed 45 miles per hour. Reporting in Fort Pierce, I'm Jason Grunauer, WPTV Channel 5.
Hoping it turns north. Praise all of us.
Wait to see that turn.
Along with you, we'll see. We'll be back with the second half hour of Hurricane Dorian coverage.